Oh yeah, go for it. Okay, so we're going live and we're live. Let's get on with this shit show.
Your shit show.
My total 100% shit show. This amateur hour bullshit. All right, so what we're here today is with me, the boy, and Spaz to talk about good DCU movies and bad DCU movies. And I think we wanted to start with Man of Steel, the first one, and Wonder Woman, the first good one, or at least as far as I can remember. Well, thoughts, Charles?
Well, I don't know what to say. um, so we just
Well, what do you think about each movie? Like like your quick blurb about each one of them. I could dig in on that.
well, the problem is that I only watched Man of Steel when it first originally came out, and that's it. And then Wonder Woman I only watched it twice.
Mhm.
Uh, so I had to like rewatch them to see uh, how good or bad they are. I already knew going in that Wonder Woman was good, and then Man of Steel was kind of like I don't know. It was up in the air because I remember it being like slow, dragging, and I criticized it a lot. And then rewatching it again, there was like some moments where I was like, well, that was done purposely, and then but the whole movie was still like, eh.
That's really what where I felt was really bad about Man of Steel was its pacing. Like, because the thing about Zack Snyder is I kind of feel like he plans his shots first, and then he does these cool looking shots, but he doesn't figure out what to do with them. So like when one thing I noticed that was really striking when I was watching Man of Steel again this morning, because obviously I didn't want to go watch it again for no reason because that was a terrible movie, was that the movie doesn't pick up until like the entire point of the movie, like about an hour in, you still have no idea what the hell Clark Kent is, what he likes, what he doesn't like, what his goals in life are. He's just some dude randomly wandering around, and they spend most of the movies introducing random characters and then switching, and then like you're like, okay, why should I care about that? Like, but where Wonder Woman, like DCU's weakest thing, I feel, is that if you watch a Marvel movie, the first 5 minutes is an action scene that kind of explains to you who the fuck everyone is, what their kind of personality and fighting styles are, and what the general layup is that they do, right? Most DCU movies don't do that well, and I think Wonder Woman does that a little bit better than most. I think that's probably why it's one of the best ones, because within the first 15 minutes, you kind of figure out, okay, who are, what Wonder Woman's people are, where they come from, what their goals in life are. You know what I mean? I had no idea what the hell was going on half the movie. Like when you're watching Batman, Man of Steel. Batman v Superman will take a lot longer to talk about how shit that garbage is.
It's funny that you brought up like an hour into the movie because I was also watching the movie. I paused it when Zod first comes into Earth and tells everybody to hand over Superman or whatever. And when I paused it, I looked at the timer. It was an hour into the fucking movie before that happens.
Yeah,
And,
the whole time, like
and
Clark is wandering around the planet, going like, "Yeah,
yeah,
I'm randomly saving people."
but
He's not even like intentionally doing it either.
like I understand that they're they're giving his background, but that's an hour long of just background on Superman, and
Like,
it takes forever to get to the buildup of the movie or like where the action is or whatever.
well,
Because
yeah,
like
well,
for that whole hour, there was like no action whatsoever.
like if Zack Snyder handled Star Wars: A New Hope or Episode 4 or whatever, like Luke would be wandering the desert for the first hour just like fixing shit, and then like fucking then the stormtroopers will show up to kill his parents. You know what I mean? It's like that's how that movie played out. I'm like, and he spends like, okay, so like here's the beginning of the movie for Man of Steel. This is what really bothered me, is a terrible story structure. I think this is what Wonder Woman got much better. It's like Man of Steel start freaking like some kid like random shit flashback having to do with Krypton blows up. Okay, then you fast forward, random dude doing random shit, flash back to him being a kid, being picked on, being alienated, right? And wanting to help people. Flash forward, random dude doing random things at a random place. Then flash back again. I'm like, Jesus Christ, how many times are you gonna flash back to establish the fact that he was picked on as a effing kid, and that He wasn't popular, and all he wanted to do was fit in and help people, and he couldn't do that. Okay, we get it. He didn't fit in. Jesus.
Yeah, like that whole section of the movie where like they're showing him uh, his powers coming into play as a kid and being picked on and all of that. That dragged on forever, and like I like the beginning where like they were showing Krypton for like 20 minutes or whatever, because like you never actually get to see that in like the original Superman movies, and a lot of these like animated movies or like animated series like the show itself, they don't show that either. It's just like really brief, Krypton explodes, whatever. But in this one, they actually went to the trouble of showing like how like their culture is and like what their community and civilization is like,
That in
and that's really
theory
good.
is cool, but I think it was placed in the wrong part of the movie. That should have been placed like somewhere in the middle when he finds a spaceship, because the plot pacing is, again, it just keeps rubber banding back and forth, back and forth. You never feel like you're going anywhere. Like when I go to Krypton, present day, flashback to kid, present day, flashback to kid, present day. Like literally, you go in like 30 minutes, and your present day character hasn't advanced the story at all. Like
Well,
he hasn't done anything yet at
yeah, I
all.
mean that's a
Like
problem, but that's separate from the Krypton at the beginning. That's like a separate issue. There's
no. Like if they had moved that forward, they could have had an establishing scene showing you what he's currently doing, what his goals are, and some stuff like that, and what he has to deal with, and you could give a shit. Like the problem is when you front load that is, I see a woman, I don't know a shit who the fuck it is, and I don't care about. I see freaking a dude I don't care about yelling with a bunch of other dudes I don't care about its planet. I have no idea what it's about. So I'm just going there and be like, okay, and then they're like, oh no, they die. I'm like, and like, so like if you had some things to establish that they're important people to him, and then that happens, you'd be like, oh, that's pretty fucked up, right? It's
well,
like
that wouldn't make any sense as far as like the movie pacing goes. Like if they put some of that in the middle of the movie, it makes
they
no
could
sense.
easily have put in that something similar, like a modified version of that scene when he goes to the spaceship. It's like where because he meets his dad, and his dad basically spends like 20 minutes just going, "Hey, this is who we are." So like in the beginning of the movie, it's like, "Hey, this is a thing that happened," and then he goes flash forward and goes, "Hey, that was us," right? Well, they could have just put that over there instead. So instead of you bouncing all over the place, and
Well, that is only because of the whole. I mean, you're saying that only because of the whole section where like they keep flashing back to when he's a kid and growing up with the powers. If they didn't do that for that long, I don't think you would have that kind of mindset though,
well,
because like it
probably,
would.
but something has to go. Well, first of all, they should probably cut back at least one of these. Like, oh, I'm a picked on kid that just wants to help people. They had
No,
like
I agree.
three
I
of those
agree with that.
scenes. Like, three. Like, what the hell are they doing? Like,
No, I agree with that. I said that they dragged it out too
yeah,
long,
like
and
that.
like
That.
those
That.
scenes were just too long. That's why the movie took to an hour mark before Zod even comes to the picture and becomes a threat. Like that was way in the movie's like 2.5 hours, so they wasted basically an hour without the main villain in the movie. That's really bad.
Yeah, that's why. Like, if you compare that to Wonder Woman, right? Like, 30 minutes in, like the Germans are on the beach. Like,
Actually, it was 20. I actually checked for that too.
20 minutes, right?
Yeah,
And then they
it was
also, like,
20
in the
minutes.
very beginning, they go, like, Ares is the bad guy. So you have your villain number one and villain number two there, the Germans and Ares, right? Right in the beginning of the movie, you know where she's going. Like the whole time, like, because like this is something similar to like what I complained about Suicide Squad. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't know why you should care about what they're doing, right? Because you don't know what to react. Like, okay, great, what does that mean?
Well, let's not go into that movie right now.
Yeah,
'Cause,
but like but it's a similar thing. Like if you don't know what Clark is doing and he does something, you're like, is that good? Is that bad? Like all we know is that his dad didn't want him saving people, and he was saving people anyways. But like at that point, they've done it so many times. You're like, okay, well he's done this before. Like why should we care he did it again? Like
well, like I, after watching the movie like just today, I understand why he was doing that. Uh, because it's like he was saying, like don't people feel what they don't understand, and if you see a guy that has superhuman powers running around Earth, whatever, everybody on Earth is gonna be like, "What the fuck? Let's do something about this person. Like, I don't trust this person. This person's gonna kill us or whatever." and like that's what he was trying to get to the point of Clark when he was small. That was the point he was trying to make
It
on him.
felt like he was very insecure because he kind of beat that point to death. At the same time, like I didn't really feel it either way. Anyways, like it's like oh my god, they're just gonna automatically hate him. I'm like, well,
Yeah, because the
if
first
they
time,
just show the people that hate him and no one that likes him, it really defeats the point because it's like you know what they say about stories like peaks and valleys. If your story is like all the way on the floor, like it's super depressing the whole time, then when it's depressing, you really don't notice, right? It's just a standard thing, and that's the kind of thing about the movie. It kind of like drummed that in. Like towards the end of the movie, I still didn't know what his sense of values were, and like the whole time they're trying to contrast that people wouldn't trust him, but they didn't even tell you what his values were, like what he stood for. You know, what I mean, I don't know what he stood for in that movie.
I'm talking about Superman.
Yeah, like what was his the principles that he will stand up to? Like what did he embody? What is his values? Like
Well,
the only thing I knew of the whole movie was I'm from Kansas. That's as American as you get. That's like the one thing that he talked about himself, and what grounds him is that he's from Kansas. Like I know one thing now. One.
I mean, I don't know. That sounds like nitpicking though. Like
No, that's a
knowing
very
that.
important thing about what drives a character is like their value system. Like, Bruce Wayne, we know, like Batman, we know his values is he doesn't kill someone. Which is why, like, when he killed Zod, I'm like, that just, and he was so sad about it. I'm like, that seems more like a Batman thing. Like,
Well, originally, when I originally saw the movie for the first time in theaters, and that scene came up where he kills Zod by breaking his neck, that pissed me off because it's not like knowing the character. That's not something Superman would do. Like in comics or and the animated show or whatever, you never see him killing anybody. Like unless it's like a robot or something, like something
like
like that's not really
that's
human.
like that's one thing. Like, if they cut out some of the scenes where he flashbacks to the kid and flash forward of him getting picked on, they could have put a scene where he starts helping people, and it's apparent, and to make it apparent that like he won't kill you. They didn't establish that anywhere in the thing. So there was no tension in that scene for me because I'm like,
Well,
okay,
I
kill
think
him. I was like,
I think the point is they show that when every single time they were like in a fight with the other Kryptonians, he was saving all the military people from dying.
saving people from dying is different from killing people. There are people that will save you from dying and perfectly be willing to shoot someone to protect you, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, but I mean, like, the point is that he was saving the military people from dying, right? Like, so that shows like his values, that he's not willing to like take life
yeah,
or
but that
not take
same
life, but
military
like,
person would, like, the military person he saved is willing to shoot someone to prevent one of his person from going down. So that doesn't necessarily say that. That's what I'm saying. Like, um, you
what? Wait, you
sparing,
get
because he was
okay?
sparing an ally, not an enemy. You get what I'm saying, right?
He was
Like,
saving them,
yeah,
not sparing them. But yeah, yeah.
yeah, but like there was no scene of him like dealing with a hostile figure and really choosing not to assault him. Like there were like all the people he dealt with, like what they were trying to do to establish that he won't hurt other people was the scenes where he's getting picked on, like he just doesn't attack back. But he was in no danger. He even says that in the scene himself. Like he never established that like he wouldn't hurt someone even if they were endangering other people because the whole time it was just him being endangered, so it didn't matter that like it did none of the scenes they established counted towards that. So when that scene happened, it just felt weird. Like everyone kind of noticed it felt weird. They're like, well, what's the problem with that? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you know the character Superman, right?
But the thing is, like, when I watch a movie, I don't try to drag all the garbage, like all the other shit that came before it, because, like, say we're watching the Joker movie, I don't pretend that all the lore from the previous Joker movies are valid in that movie. I try to take what's in the movie as what's in the movie, right? And I know you're gonna go, well, yeah, the real Superman wouldn't do that. I'm like, yeah, granted, right? But like, this obviously isn't the real Superman because he sucks.
I mean that's how you're putting it, but like what I'm trying to say is like if you know some of the lore of a character that the movie's based on, then some of the lore should already be imprinted in you, and you should take that consideration into the film that you're watching. Like you should know, like, oh, you're watching a Superman movie, you know he's gonna do this, this, and that, and if he doesn't do certain things, then that's because maybe they changed
Well,
something
first
or
of all, Man of Steel is the first movie, so it's a universe reset, and that's the point where they pick and choose which parts of the universe are they going to carry forward. So, um,
well, you're
generally
talking
speaking,
in the sense of like cinematic universe. I'm just talking about the sense of the Lord of the
no, no,
character.
in the lore too, like they do universe resets and even in comics, and when
No,
they
I
have a
understand that. No,
universe,
no, no.
they choose what they bring forward. So they might go, this part of the character is not important to our writing of the thing, so we're not going to bring that forward. That's what that was. So
No,
I
I
only
understand
count
that,
what
but
they bring forward, and they didn't bring forward that. That's the
you're
thing.
you're like mixing you're mixing both like at that point. I'm just saying that you bring some of the lore with you, knowing that certain things you're expecting certain things of the movie. Like for example, if you're gonna watch a Batman movie, you go in knowing that he's not gonna kill anybody. Is the point. And then if they actually show you him killing somebody, you'll be like, "What the fuck? That's not what he does." You know, that's the kind of thing I'm trying to say.
Well, generally speaking, even in Batman movies, they usually make a point early on in the movie, right, to show you that he actively avoids killing them. Like in almost every Batman movie, they do that, and that's what makes them good. Because again, when you're making a movie, you can't assume everyone has read 1,000 comics of that character, and most of the time, I haven't read it. Like because as you know, I haven't had time to read the comics growing up as a kid. I only got the cartoons, but like the part of
Yeah,
the thing, because when you make a movie out of an existing IP, you have to make a movie that people who watched the original comics, you or read original comics or watch the TV shows enjoy, but they also have to make it so people who've never watched it can enjoy it using this as a starting point, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. But like, but see, like, what I'm trying to say is, it's not just based on like this character Superman. It's based on anything you have pre knowledge of. Say like you're watching a movie about vampires, you know the generic information about vampires. Even like if you don't know what these vampires in this specific movie are gonna be like, you know that you're expecting to see vampires with superhuman strength, maybe, or speed or stamina or something. You know they're not gonna like the sunlight or something like along those lines. So I'm just saying like there's certain aspects of a character when you have certain knowledge of it that you're expecting to see or they're expecting to incorporate or the values of them or whatever incorporated. So it's kind of a given sometimes. Other things they might like take away or replace or shift around, and that's only when you see it in the movie that you see what they changed around or whatever. So like the thing about the values is that like sure they might have not shown it like the way you wanted them to show it, but it's Superman. You know what he's about. Like you know he's not gonna kill anybody. You know he's gonna protect citizens. You know he's gonna defend the earth, kind of thing. You know that's kind of his whole value system. You don't need for them to show it to you or to tell you that.
I don't know. They made a lot of the characters very different than what I expected them to be. So to see all those differences and then expect them to be the same, like I don't count it out. Maybe you could say that's the thing that doesn't bother you, and I think that's fine. But I think as a general movie viewer, I don't like them just saying something happens because, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want as a movie viewer, I don't want to look up a Wikipedia page to explain why something happened in a movie. I think anytime that happens is bad. That's why I didn't like how Marvel unleashed Vision because I had no idea who the fuck he was. I didn't know his name until after the movie was over. I didn't know that was his name was going to be Vision. Like that's the one thing I fought with Marvel, but you should be able to watch a movie and enjoy the movie within the movie itself, and you should then be able to explore the wider universe and get additional value from it. I think when you do a good adaptation, that's what it is. But if you're watching a Harry Potter movie and you've never and like you came out of a rock, you didn't know what a wizard is. If they didn't bother explaining it, it'll be kind of weird. It's like if you're watching Star Wars and they just never explain what the Force was, that would be kind of weird. It's like those kind of things. And so
Yeah, but
like
you're arguing about just values. You're not arguing about whether they explained what Superman is or isn't.
Well,
So that's
values
two
is very
different things.
important to a character. It's what drives them forward. It's why Batman doesn't kill people and other superheroes might. They're like there's certain superheroes are very similar other than their values. Like Punisher is really super similar to a lot of different heroes except he's a psychopath that murders anyone in his way. You know what I mean? Like there's a plenty of superheroes that use
Well,
guns, but Punisher, what makes him different is his values. So the values matter like when you're talking about how a superhero behaves. And that's one of the things I liked about what Wonder Woman did is that they actually talked about what what are the values of Themyscira and the people of Themyscira. That's why, as she was doing things, I actually felt a connection to what she was doing because you knew why she was trying to do it and why it was important to her. I didn't know what was, like, like Clark was just like, I don't want to piss off my dad. I'm like,
Well, if you want to think of it in that way, it's because Clark, uh, Superman, whatever, didn't know what his values were. He was trying to learn and figure that out himself throughout the whole film. That was the point. Like there was so many periods of times where when during those flashbacks where his dad kept explaining to him like why he shouldn't use his powers or whatever, and that was one of the instances.
yeah, that's why I felt like instead of doing flashbacks, they should have just either focus on an earlier time, like do the Smallville timeline, right?
No, that's fine. But
And
like the point is that like that was just one example, but there was other examples throughout the movie where he was trying to figure that out. Like when I believe when he was, I can't remember, even though I just saw it, but like when he got when he went into custody by the army or whatever, and they were questioning him or whatever, like that was just another moment there where he was like telling them like that they don't have to fear him or whatever because he's not their enemy. He was like still in the process of figuring out what his values are.
yeah,
Like
see,
there's examples of that throughout the whole movie.
yeah, they're just not strong. They don't stick with you. Like they're just kind of eh. Like what I think they should have done is that the movie really takes place across three different timelines, right? There's his early childhood, there's his present adult life, and there's the Kryptonian cycle, right? And I feel like they when they cover all of that, it kind of expands it to the point where you can't really spend a lot of time in either one. So you really don't understand what's going on, and you get a bunch of broken up fragments of stories that they try to stitch together, and I don't think it comes together. I think that's why you're just like you just don't care because like so I felt like either they should have chosen like a more condensed timeline that touches on those things but really focuses hard on something that's happening in a very specific thing, very similar to what Wonder Woman did, because I think Wonder Woman did that. Like
Well, Wonder Woman did everything just better in general.
yeah, exactly. Like that's one of the reasons why I compared the two, because I think Wonder Woman's a blueprint at how they should do a lot of these movies. I think that's Wonder Woman's like a blueprint that they used. I think that they're using for all the ones that worked, like Shazam and what you call it, Aquaman. Yeah, like so because they have a much more simpler storyline. Like they don't try to they don't outplay themselves. You know what I mean? They don't try to make it more complicated than it needs to be.
I also think that Man is Still there was a problem with it also in the humor department because throughout the whole movie.
Oh yeah, the humor was terrible.
There was nothing that made me laugh in that movie at all.
Well, the worst thing is when they tried, it was really awkward because the whole movie's gray, dour, brooding, dark.
Yeah, that whole movie was like just like a depressing movie, and like there was no humor and like nothing uplifting about it. So like the whole movie like was depressing. It dragged on too long. The action was all at the end. There was no humor. The well on your side like there was a lot of lacking on like the values. The movie was just god awful like when it was put together.
Yeah, that's because it feels like again like they chopped that shit for trailers, and they're like he went, this will look good in the trailer, this will look good, this will go. And you put it up together like, this ain't a movie, man. This is just like a random like assortment of shit that happened. Like one of the ideas I had is they should have put the first part in the movie, um, in Smallville, and him and Lana King doing some shit, like she getting picked on and he having to protect her, right? And then fast forward to present time, where he follows Lois Lane, finds a spaceship and does shit, and that could help set a blueprint to how set your expectations of how he's going to behave across the storyline. You have one mini storyline for how he behaves, what he needs, how he reacts to stuff, so you know what he will do and you know what to anticipate, and then you can be surprised based on how his character grows. I think when they do like these like 3, 4, 5 flashbacks constantly, I'm like, it doesn't allow you to get to know the character.
Yeah. Well, let's move away from the flashbacks. I think that's a dead horse we beat already.
Yeah, it's like dead, but it killed the storyline. But yeah, that's why I think like Wonder Woman did it so much better, because it's basically like one exposition flashback in the beginning. and
Actually,
that's it.
the funny thing is also like I think if you compare Man of Steel to the original movies, like Superman one, Superman two from like the '80s, or I think it was '80s. Like those movies are actually, I think they did a better job. Well, except for like the graphics and all that, because they don't have the same
Well, they did the best they could with
technology
the
back. Yeah,
VFX, but
with the
I haven't
technology back at the
actually.
time.
I don't
But
remember any of those movies, but I'll take your word on anything you're about to say about them.
like they were like campy because they're from that era, but I think the pacing in those movies were a lot better. And there was actually like humor in it too that I remember. Like when like for example when Superman saves Lois for the first time, she's falling off the building and like she's carrying her up and like he's all like, oh, don't worry, I got you. And then she like turns around and goes like, you got me, who's got you? Because like she's like surprised to see a flying man.
Yeah,
So like that's like some like hearted humor, but there was like none of that in Man of Steel, and that was just bad. Like I
you
believe
know what's funny about that?
need some kind
Patty
of humor.
Patty Lowe, the director, or Patty Perkins, or like the
Patty
director for
Jenkins.
Wonder Woman, she specifically cited that the original Superman was the feeling she wanted to capture. She wanted to be bright and hopeful and inspiring for people.
Yeah,
And I think what Nolan and Snyder did together, who knows how much Nolan really helped, because Nolan Defender said he had nothing to do with the movie, but I'm like, look, he put his fucking name on it. Is
dude,
that
his name's on the end credit. That was like the first name I noticed. Like after
yeah, it's like
Snyder.
I think they were trying to copy Batman's formula onto Superman. I'm like, but that doesn't
That's not
work.
gonna work.
Like they're different characters, which is
Yeah,
why
they're
Batman v
different.
Superman worked so well, because they bounced off each other. They were like what like one was like hope and pride and dream and inspiration. The other was like realistic, grim. What you call it? You have
Yeah,
to you have to get things done. You know
that way it was just terrible too, though. By the way,
which one?
Batman versus Superman.
Well,
I
Batman
did
versus
not.
no, I'm talking about like the cartoon show.
Oh,
Like
the cartoon. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
complete. Yeah,
Batman versus
that's
Superman, we know, but like I think this is the critical problem of all the bad DC movies is they shove too much shit in, and they don't know what to keep in and out, so they just start randomly chopping it to bits, and what you get is a bunch of random shit being shown in random order. You're like, why is this happening? Like, the hell?
yeah. I don't know, but like there are some good parts in Superman that I wanted to just like point out, like when like well just because of like how like they were showing it on display, like it's just for me anyways. Like when he's talking to his dad in the ship or whatever, the AI, and like he puts on the suit for the first time and he's testing out his powers or whatever. Like he didn't actually automatically know how to fly. He was just like hulking across the damn area, just like jumping across like long distances. He had to like do that first and then learn how to fly, like and then like learn how to use or randomly learn how to use the lasers or whatever, or whatever. It's like small things like that actually like made a difference in the movie for me because like it shows that like the character had to like learn something first. He didn't just know how to be himself out of the box.
See, I agree. And actually, if I were to do the movie, because I'm an armchair director that knows nothing about actually making movies, but I think that's a good spark for the movie to start. Is that like he shows up there with Lana, sneaking about, finds a spaceship, finds his destiny, and then from there they cut out all the useless shit as a kid, and they could have added a little bit more time for him to cover the whole Krypton stuff that happened in the beginning, right? And then from there they in addition to that they could have scenes that covered him experimenting with his powers, him trying to see how he could use his powers to help people away. Like that would have been a much better flow to the movie.
Well, maybe, but like everybody has their own opinion about how movies should be made or whatever. Like how you said, armchair director or whatever.
You're right.
Like, so I also had my opinion on how like certain movies should be made. Like in this one, like um, at the start of the movie, for example, you know how they were showing the Krypton and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like what really irked me is that at nowhere did they mention Brainiac or like his AI or whatever because Brainiac comes from Krypton and like they basically created this AI there, and in the original whatever story of Brainiac, he was on the planet and he dips out before the planet explodes, and they didn't mention that in the little arc where they're showing you Krypton or at the end of the credits or anything like that. So that's like one of the things that irks me about like the lore of certain characters.
I don't
Like
mind because that's something they could explain later when it's important. But what they could have done that would have satisfied you is just say the word Brainiac in passing conversation, but
like
not explain
anything.
it.
Like they didn't like they should have just thrown a bone to that reference anywhere and they didn't.
I think
Uh,
they missed a lot of opportunities with references because of the product placement too.
yeah, there was a lot of product placement all over the place. There was like
Like there was only one reference to LexCorp that I spotted, and when you
yeah, the
compare
truck,
that to like Wonder Woman, where right in the beginning you see like
the
Wayne
way
Corp,
yeah,
like
it was like
Wayne
right at the
Industries.
beginning. Like
So,
if you actually blink and like or turn your head or something during that scene where the truck explodes or whatever, you miss the LexCorp reference or whatever.
right?
But the one with Wonder Woman where they're showing you the Wayne thing, there was like multiple because it wasn't just on the truck, but it was also the logo on the briefcase and on the paper email or whatever that he sent.
Yeah,
So
well, I
multiple.
consider that part of the same chain because it's the same
Yeah,
chain of events that caused it.
yeah,
But
that's what
yeah,
I'm saying. Like
but
he
it shows you
plenty,
the world is bigger, like bigger
you had
than
plenty
just a
of
movie.
you had like plenty of chances to actually see it, right? The reference.
Hmm.
But in Superman, there was only like a quick little 2 seconds to see that truck explode, and if you didn't see it, you missed it completely.
And
And
yet
there
they
was
make
no
sure
other.
all the I'm not gonna name the product placement because I don't want them to win. But like yet you see like these very clear shots of like established restaurant franchises and hardware stores getting blown up, and you're like,
And the drinks and the gas station with the you know the corner 24 hours
I remember when I was
place.
first watching that, that gave me like iRobot levels of headache because I think iRobot's still the worst product placement movie ever made.
But well, I forgot because it has been such a long time since I saw that movie. But yeah, Man of Steel has too much product placement to the point that I feel like the product placement basically paid for the movie.
I love this though that the like you're complaining about product placement when you have a product placement on the stream. Granted, they're not paying us. You just wanted to
but
put a Jill sandwich meme on here.
Well, that's actually more of a meme than anything else. I mean, I meme since I'm recording not streaming, I could just edit that out, like the
Yeah,
logo. But anyways, like there was I don't think when switching like if because I want to switch over to Wonder Woman because I think we bagged on Superman too long.
you're right.
Like Wonder Woman, like did pretty much the complete opposite. Like when I watched it in theaters, I was like super surprised at how good it actually turned out to be because like the trailer was good and whatnot, but then like I still have my doubts because of how bad what was it Batman versus Superman was.
All right,
Like
that was after Batman versus
yeah, it was
Superman.
after, so I was like I was so let down by
Why'd
that
they
Batman versus
do
Superman. So
that?
like
Like,
I
why
don't
did
know.
like?
So like I went into the movie going, I don't know, I don't know if I'm gonna like this or not because like I already had like bad taste in my mouth from the previous movie, right? But I got pretty much shockingly surprised because the movie was so well done. Like it was watching it again. There was like very little things I could criticize about the movie that they might they, opinion wise they did wrong or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was trying to look for like things to pull out, but it was more of like nitpicking here and
Yeah,
there.
most of the things were nitpicky.
Yeah,
Like they they went through like I noticed like watching second time later that like they had a lot of the whole like social justice stuff in there, but I don't think it was super out of place, and a lot of it did inform the storyline that hey, humans are naturally effed up long before the gods had anything to do with them. You know what I mean?
yeah, but like to be honest, I didn't feel any SJW vibes from the movie. To be
No,
honest,
because I think it was pretty reasonable. Like
like
she's a naive person in this world, so all this stuff would surprise her, and it would happen during that time frame. It made sense, and they didn't beat you over the head with it. They just went, "This is a thing. It happened. It's stupid, but it was there, and that's why she's dealing with it." I'm like, done.
yeah.
That's all we need.
Also, the thing about that is that little thing is that if they made Wonder Woman a little more SJW, like being like a feminazi type of thing, it wouldn't be completely out of character because that's how she acts in certain instances. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen any of the animated films, but if you watch Young Justice, that's totally how she acts. Like she's always like talking bad about the male character. Not always, but like when when there's something she doesn't like and it's a male character's fault, she like completely like goes in on them.
She
In the
makes them know that she does she
Yeah,
that's not cool. Yeah.
exactly. So like it's not out of her character. That's actually how she is because that's how the way she was brought up in the Themyscira. But
Hmm.
it's not to the point where it's bad because it's the way she is as a character. And she like learns to grow out of it. Like um eventually, because even like the Justice League show, there was like little semblance of that, like seep here and there during like some of the episodes, but like it wasn't like full blown out. It was just like, oh, this is like her character lore. Like when she talks down to Batman for doing something like for making her feel like she's just damsel in distress or whatever. She puts him down in his place or whatever. So it's like that wouldn't have really bothered me because that's her character.
You know one thing I think they did also really well in Wonder Woman is they set up the supporting characters and that builds Wonder Woman. Like for instance, like you remember the beginning of the movie where there's a huge black chick just owning everyone, and
Yeah.
then later on when she owns the black chick, you're like, oh shit, she's badass. There wasn't any of that in Superman, none. And then like the same thing they set up like her trainer, the queen's sister. I forget her name because they're all like Greek shit. I can't
The
remember
the,
that.
the chick from House of Cards.
Yeah, when she goes down, you actually gave a shit when like fucking when fucking
Oh, you
Clark
mean when
Kent's
she got
dad
killed?
dies. You're just like, huh,
You
that
mean when she got
happened.
killed right in the beach?
Yeah, like she got killed on the beach. Like,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh fuck, right? Like I was like, I wasn't like, and then like when Clark Kent's dad, like, well, basically when her aunt dies, you're like, eh, or where you're like, oh shit. When Clark Kent's actual dad dies, you're like, okay, like if they had shown again, like let's just
The funny thing about that scene where Clark Kent's dad dies, I got so pissed off and annoyed by that scene that I had an argument with Kevin about that.
oh, because he did. Why didn't he just go save him?
No. The argument was like, because I kind of forgot. I had like a stupid moment because I forgot that his dad actually dies in all the lores, except for like the animated show. That was the only instance where he didn't die, and I kind of forgot about that. And I was like complaining, like, why the fuck did they kill him off like that? That was just stupid. Like, if they were gonna kill him off, do it in like a different way. And then like, he's someone put me in my place, like. He actually has died in every single instance that you've seen, except for one time. So I was
It
like,
just
oh
happened to be
shit.
the one you consume the most content from.
Yeah, but but that just goes to show that like because he's more Superman lore guy than I am. I'm more of a Batman lore guy. So like
Yeah.
I I had to take his word for it. I'm like, oh well, and then I looked it up later. I'm like, oh yeah, that is right.
Hmm.
But yeah, for some reason that pissed me off because like he was just standing there like telling him not to save him. I'm like, what?
No,
You
I
know, like
get how that scene could have been good had they actually shown you spending a good amount of time with him and his kid. But like all the scenes are so short that you really don't get a understanding of what their family dynamic was and how his dad interplayed with the community or any of that thing. Like all you knew about his dad was he really didn't want his son to go out there and get his ass found out. That's
yeah.
it. So
And
like
then like the funny thing is you compare that um like the dad actually had more screen time and everything and like longevity, right? Or like more reason to be on the screen. But then you compare that to the trainer in Wonder Woman and she had like less screen time and we actually give more shit about her.
yeah, because the screen time was used correct. Like all of the dad's shots were the same exact shot. Here's his dad in a nutshell. Every scene. Yeah, you shouldn't have shown yourself. People get freaked out, but we're cool, right? All the scenes are the same way. Like
Like the other thing is that the reason I cared is because well, I don't know a lot about Wonder Woman's lore, but I know enough. And like I knew that I couldn't remember her name, but I knew that Wonder Woman had like a personal trainer or something, or like a trainer that taught her. And like I knew that she was very important, so like I kind of put two together. I'm like, oh, that's the chick that trains her, like being oh, quote unquote Amazon or whatever. And like oh, she's probably gonna die. Like I thought about it in the back of my
another
mind.
cool part of what they did is that's how she gets her tiara, like
Yeah,
her
that's how
headband, and
she gets
that's
her.
something that she brings with her as a character. But that you didn't get like What did he get from his dad when he died? Like, what did he?
The,
What was his takeaway from there?
the only problem that like or criticism I have on Wonder Woman and certain things is like since I don't know a lot about her lore, I do know enough. Like I know like her first story is that of her like running off with a man, which is Steve Trevor, and that's like the quote unquote joke or meme people say. Like, like oh, if she's such a strong independent woman, then why is her first story running off by a man? It's like that's kind of hilarious, but like at the same time, like she did that because she went off to prove herself and to like you know
I think that's a bit persnickety because for me, like the whole story arc was about her breaking her naivety, right?
yeah,
Like she was
well
a
that's the
naive
whole main
person,
story.
and of course, if you're in a island full of women, the thing that would be the most like world changing is to actually hang out with a man, right? So
Yeah,
that's
but
why she was with the man. Is not because she needed the man. Is
no, no,
because that's what made sense for her story.
no, I understand, but like I'm referencing like the comic book. Like the comic book, her very first comic book is actually her running off with Steve Trevor, which is
Mm-hmm.
funny because that's the very first issue or very first story of her, which is like if you put it in perspective, it's like I mean, the whole that's why it was a whole joke. It's like if she's really this strong of a woman, why is her first story running off with a man? It makes no sense. But like,
Mm-hmm.
um, not knowing a lot about her lore, like some of the things I picked off about her or the criticism in the movie is that like, uh, in like say if you if you take like lore from the show, she actually didn't she, a lot of her stuff weren't given to her, like the sword, the whip, and all that stuff. She actually took it and stole it from where it was
The
put,
gods.
the gods or whatever. And so a lot of her weaponry and equipment were not active during the time in like the animated show. And like I actually prefer that version because it shows that she had to earn her the rights to use those weapons. And I kind of would have liked something similar to that, but that's like just nitpicking, you know.
I think that's
Um,
a cool thing, but I think it's harder to pull off in a movie versus like a
yeah,
show because the show you get
yeah,
20 hours to explain that shit. You know what I
for
mean?
sure.
It's
But
like,
the thing that goes on with that, like part of that stuff is like in that a lot of her lore or enemies, I'm not aware of. Like the only ones I'm aware of is just Cheetah
oh,
and
I know a lot of people were not happy that Kristen Wiig turns out to be Cheetah.
who?
The okay, you remember in the Wonder Woman 88 or whatever, like that like office like the awkward like nerd chick, that's supposed to be Cheetah.
Oh, I mean, I don't care about that.
Yeah,
It's like
people were not fans of that, but I'm like, I like Kristen Wiig, so hopefully she does a good job.
I mean, yeah, I don't know why people are mad about that, but like, I don't really care. I just want the character to be like good, you know, like they make a good acting and all that, and the movie's good and all that. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah. For me, the previous lore for Wonder Woman doesn't affect me much because I know shit about Wonder Woman. So as long as the movie's good, I'm fine. I don't care how accurate it is. It's like to the original content, as long as it makes sense in the context of the DCU. Which is what I'm gonna be very interested to see how the new Wonder Woman deals with the DCU now that because no one really. I think that's gonna be the first movie post everything falling to shit like that will a stat from one of the characters of the DCU. You know what I mean?
what are you talking about? What do you mean?
Because right now the whole DCU is kind of in question. Nobody knows what the plan
Oh
going
yeah,
forward is, right?
well, that's a different topic, a different issue. But
Yeah.
as I was saying, uh, besides Cheetah, the only other ones I know about is like the gods of Olympus or whatever, which is like Ares and Hades.
Hmm.
Those are like the only villains I know of her lore. So like anything else they bring to the table, I won't be just surprised because I don't know who the fuck they are. But the problem I have, another problem I have with this movie is that they kill off
The
the
gods.
God of War. Yeah,
Well,
because
they kill. Technically, they killed off all the gods. She's the last one left.
yeah, they kill off all the
If
gods.
you
But
take, if we believe the story is being reliable, it could be an unreliable narrator, and the gods aren't actually dead. We just think they are. But
yeah,
as
but
far as we know, at the end of the movie, all the gods are dead. Which I'm like, well, one thing I do know is many of her villains are just gods. But if Hades isn't dead, then I think it would be funny if they have the guy that did Hades' voice for Hercules to come in because everyone loves that guy. But that's a different. That's not involving this one. But yeah, I think that's a bit weird for the future tense. It doesn't. directly negatively affect this movie. It because
No, it doesn't. It's just
if anything, it helps because it's just less things to explain because you don't need to explain any of the gods. You're all
yeah,
dead.
yeah. Well, like I was saying, it's just nitpicks because like the way I see it is like when they kill off the gods, quote unquote, in the movie, like it reduces like the amount of like storytelling you could use with those kind of characters. And another major problem I have is that they or Ares at least says that only a god can kill another god. So like that states that one woman is a god, which is not true.
Well,
Like
maybe it wasn't true in the comic book, but that's the new lore they're establishing for the DCU, or at least as far as we know. Again, he
which
could be lying too, because Ares is not necessarily the most truthful person. You know what I mean?
well, yeah, I mean, we
Although he
can
did have the whip on him, but who knows if that actually works on him?
yeah, we can go with the thing that Ares is lying or whatever. But like, if that is true, that well, the statement was that she is a god. Um, that means that she's stronger than Superman. And most of the altercations they have had, Superman has always like been having the upper hand when those two have fought.
Yeah, but
So
Superman's also what I call the short bus of the current DCU movies because like all his movies are crap. So like it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, he should be the best one because like all his movies have been bad. It's hard to know what he should be.
she should be more classified as a demigod. That's what I would like to see. Because like
Well,
just
we don't know that demigod doesn't fit within that description. Like that rule set isn't explained very well, and it isn't explained very well how much of a god there is because remember in the Greek and Roman pantheons, not all gods are created equal. Like there are a lot of very shit tier gods. You know what I mean?
okay. See, so like I looked it up right now, right? And she actually becomes a god after she dies. She becomes a god of truth or something like that.
Mm.
So she should not be a god at this point in time in the movie. So it's basically bullshit. That's why things like that, like little like statements or that people characters make in movies, and I call bullshit on because like it doesn't fit. Like,
Well, it doesn't fit that storyline, but you gotta remember, every movie, good or bad, changes portions of the original lore. Because if you're not gonna make any changes, you almost certainly shouldn't make a new one because generally speaking, parts of the lore fit better. Like the and parts of lore don't. Like a lot of the movies I like make changes to the character's lore. It's just what happens. Like if we go by that thing, The Joker was a terrible movie because it completely dumpstered the lore, like
no,
the
no,
original
no.
lore.
I'm not saying that this one of the things ruined the whole movie. I'm just saying like these are like nitpicks I'm talking about. Just how I mentioned earlier, like it's hard to actually say what bad things about the movie because there was
Well, like
one.
I don't consider it bad unless it negatively affects the movie. Because the whole point of the movie is to be a good movie, not to be like a shot by shot remake of a comic. Now, some of the good movies do that, and some of the good movies don't. Some bad movies are shot by shot like remakes of the original source material too. You know what I mean? Like Ghost in the Shell was, other than the fact that they casted a white woman, like was apparently everyone said it was just a shot and shot remake of the anime. Like so, I don't consider the how well it sticks to the line as a fault. And I know you're saying it's a nitpick. It's not like you're super upset about it, but like I don't even consider it a problem. That's right. I think
Well,
I think the biggest problem was that like Ares' final fight wasn't interesting.
well, that's a movie problem. I genuinely find more problems with things from source material because I tend to know a lot about the source material when it comes to like these kind of movies. Except for this one because I don't know. I never studied. I don't know a lot about Wonder Woman's lore, but there are certain things I do know a lot about her. Certain things like that should work the way they should work, and when they don't, and I see that shit, I'm like, no, that's bullshit. Like there was this time, I'm not sure if you saw. Did you see the Flashpoint paradox?
The animation I believe that watched at Samuel's house. It didn't
Yeah,
really
the
stick with me because I didn't care too much about it, but I
okay.
saw it. I think Kevin
So
also showed it to me because he was also like my friend Sam and Kevin, or my cousin Kevin and Samuel both really were into that special.
well, in that movie, there was a part where Wonder Woman lassoed. I think it was Shazam. Like she had him in the lasso tied up or whatever, and like they fucked up the lore of the lasso in that movie, and I got pissed off. And like when Kevin showed it to me, like when that scene was coming up, because I never seen the movie before, right? The scene was coming up, and he looked at me. He's like, "You're about to get really pissed off." Like why? And he didn't say anything. And then that scene happened. I'm like, "Fuck!" I got like so mad. I started yelling and shit. Like fucking walked out of the room.
So the way I view changes from source material is changing the recipe, right? So the source material I consider recipe, right? And sometimes you don't follow the recipe when you're cooking or making something.
Yeah,
And sometimes that turns out good because you
sometimes.
wanted to do something different than what the recipe is. And sometimes that turns out horrific. And I judge it not by how close you stick to the recipe, but how good it turned out. So,
Yeah.
in Wonder Woman, I would say that most of the changes made the individual movie in question better. I think the only potential problem is that it may make going forward a bit difficult. Again, especially because since many of her classic villains are gods and they're apparently all dead. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
like if you start a Batman movie and the first scene, Arkham Asylum blows up with everyone in it, you'll be like, that was cool, but what are we gonna do? You know what I mean? That's kind of what like happened in Wonder Woman.
I feel like if they do that, but then they do a good explanation of why that happened, and I don't know, like you said, like if it turns out to be well and fixes, like say the recipe, like as you're saying, turns out to be actually good, like good food or whatever to devour, then yeah, sure, fine. I don't care if they do that as long as like they don't break rules of like the lore, like you know, like that's what pisses me off when they break rules of lore,
Well, I
and that's why
think generally speaking, I wouldn't say rules of lore, but I think there's like the spirit of the character, the mythos, right? And there's certain things that you can change, but at a certain point, if you change certain things, you're not helping the
well,
thing. You know what I mean? Like if Batman was an insane murderer, it wouldn't really be the same character, right?
no, but that's why I say that if there's certain things you don't break with lore of the characters. This is why I got pissed off with the lasso thing in Flashpoint, um, because in that movie, uh, when she had the lasso on him, she forced him to say the magic word that reverts him back into kid form his Shazam body, and that's not supposed to happen when she uses the lasso. All the lasso really does is compel the person to not lie,
Yeah,
not to force him
not
to
the
say
force of a
something.
specific speech.
Yeah, exactly. So that's lore breaking. That's why I got pissed off when I got
Like
when they showed it.
I don't
And
know Shazam really well, but like I wonder if he could have just asked him the question in the form of a question, kind of like Jeopardy, like, "What is your transformation word, Shazam?" And did he transform? I don't know if that would work, or does he
I don't
have to
know, but
intentionally say Shazam in that way?
I don't know, but that's not how the lasso works, and that pissed me off.
Yeah.
But in the same instance of that example, there was one thing that pissed me off about Wonder Woman's movie, and also her showing up in Batman vs Superman, which is that they took away her ability to fly. I think that's some stupid shit that they did right there.
I'm not 100% sure of that because in the end they're kind of ambiguous whether she could fly or not.
Well,
That's the thing.
the thing about that is that this movie takes place before the events of Batman vs Superman, and in Batman vs Superman, she never flew once in that whole movie. So it leads to believe that she can't fly. Also in Justice League, she's there. Also, she still hasn't flown. So they have never shown her fly in three separate movies already. So
Yeah.
I think the problem there is that they took her flight away because they would have compared her to Superman or something. But that's
I
one
think
of her
they're
abilities.
holding it back for the
Abilities.
new movie because I have a feeling that that golden armor is basically when she starts flying. But
But
like,
the problem with that speculation or that like rumor, is that they're gonna make it so like it makes it seem like she requires that armor. She never required anything to fly. It was just a natural talent of hers.
well, I think it kind of reminded me of the story development of Thor. Like when they go, "What are you, Thor, god of hammers?" And they didn't really show him like doing a lot of fuckery with like thunder. Like and whenever he did, it was related to the hammer. And then after he broke his hammer, it did it. So like the armor may be something that just allows her to understand her flight powers rather than something that she needs to fly. Because that's basically how they handled Thor on MCU side. So there's precedent to how that's handled correctly.
Sure, but on Thor's side, he was always flying. They didn't take that away from him. It's like
No, no,
they
but he wasn't really messing with lightning without his hammer, is what I'm saying. Because
no,
every time he did lightning beforehand, the hammer was there. So the president before that event was that he needed the hammer came from the lightning came from the hammer, not from him.
no, that's fine because that's usually how it was in comics. Like the
I know,
lightning
but
came from
that's basically what I'm saying is that like it's very likely that she just doesn't know she could fly, and the
maybe.
armor helps her understand that rather than she doesn't know how to fly, and there's precedent of that being done well with another god-based character in a comic setting, but we read a Marvel movie, not DC. So they
No,
could have
no,
fucked
but
it up. It's very possible they could have fucked it up, but generally speaking, in the movie too, nothing she did really called for her to fly, and in many of the scenes when she's fighting the god, she kind of like whether she was flying or jumping really hard was kind of ambiguous to begin with.
yeah, it really was.
So like
Um,
I didn't know for sure, but I don't think it mattered in the movie. Now again, I think it
no, no,
will matter going forward.
it didn't. Like I agree with you. It didn't matter. But what I'm getting at is like these are small like nitpicks I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like it didn't ruin the movie entire like in its entirety. Like, 'cause the movie was still good. It's just like like I just don't like when, like I said earlier, the lore breaks of
You
characters.
know what nitpick I do think is thing? I think that it was super obvious who Ares was, so when they flipped the plot, I was just like, oh, all right, you're finally going. It's like that was like kind of like that like if you have two people that are dating each other, but they're trying to keep it down low, except everyone knows. That was that part of the movie. I was just like when they go like,
Speaking of speaking of that, I thought it was pretty funny when she was fighting the guy that was like the fake Ares or whatever.
yeah.
Uh, and like she thinks like he was the real Ares just because he sniffs some PCP or whatever. It doesn't it goes like
I really liked how they did that character. I thought they did General Ludendorff really cool because he was on super cocaine. I thought that was I thought that was well done. I thought
that was
they
pretty
made it
funny.
so that it made sense for her to believe that. Except that as a viewer, we obviously knew it wasn't him because it was just too
Yeah.
obvious.
Well, we already knew, but like I thought it was funny because they brought that up earlier in the scene, right? Where like the scientist shows them this new whatever that makes I don't know what it does. I'm just saying PCP because it makes him. It looks like he goes insane and like there's some
It's a
bullshit going on.
super upper.
Yeah, so like basically, and like
Let's just say it's super meth because the Germans actually have a history messing around with meth.
yeah. So they brought it up once, right? And then they never bring it up until the very end, where he's like, where he's fighting Wonder Woman, and then he has to sniff it because he's getting his ass kicked.
Well, to be fair, he most of the time he wasn't doing anything that
Oh
required him
yeah,
to
no, he
use
was
it.
just a general.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, he's like a human. He's like a shitter. But
Yep.
like, I thought that scene was funny. Like,
Yep.
but uh I don't know. Aside from like those things I mentioned, I can't think of anything else that like bothered me about the movie because everything was fine. There was actually a lot more like funny moments.
There's one thing that bothered me. It's a nitpick, but like, how the fuck do you walk around with a goddamn broadsword in a fucking party and full of military personnel and nobody fucking notices? Like they have it like, oh, she's wearing it on her back and it looks decorative. Like I don't buy that shit. Like any person gonna look at that, it's like, is that a fucking sword hilt and a fucking blade? It's like,
Well, I mean, it bothers you, I think, more because you're like into like weaponry and all that stuff. So I think it
plus
bothers.
like that dress wasn't her dress. She just stole it off someone, so it's not like it's built to hold the weight
Actually,
of a sword.
actually, yeah. Like when I watched it again and I noticed that she actually stole the dress, I was like thinking to myself, like, that's not something she would do. Like normally, like she wouldn't.
Well, I think what probably happened is like her friend stole it for her and then she just wore it. But
But it was on
like
camera, It
yeah.
doesn't mean that she stole it.
But like I'm just saying, like you're like they didn't necessarily design dresses to conceal fucking god killing swords from freaking Themyscira, you know what I mean? Like that's not something they designed them to do. In fact, those dresses are supposed to be extremely impractical, so I'm not sure like normally you can't even hold them tic tacking them, not to mention a giant sword
No, no, no,
without
but
screwing up the dress.
no, no. I'm just saying that like the whole thing about her stealing the dress, I think that goes against her like whole being like a character of truth and stuff, like not lying, especially since she's the person that controls the lasso and it's supposed to be like the truth wielder or whatever.
Maybe
So
she
like
convinced them to borrow the dress. I don't know.
I don't know, but like the assumption is that she stole it. So like I just feel like if that's the assumption they want us to go with, then that leads to her to being out of character in that situation.
Right. So what you call it? Uh, so we agree that we liked the beginning of Wonder Woman. We thought that was good. That mostly there's no nitpicks. What do you think of the middle of the movie? Like after she leaves Themyscira, but uh, that time before she gets into like the front lines. What do you think of like the middle part of the movie?
You talking about that section in London?
Yeah, pretty much like London up until the point she runs into battle.
Well, I mean, that was like the slow part, but like that's where some of the humor was too.
Yeah, I love that British chick. She was in a few other movies too. Like every time I see her, I just love her because she's hilarious.
Yeah, like I thought like she was that line was actually in the trailer. If I remember, that we're like, oh, I don't mind getting into some fisticuffs or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that was in the trailer too, and like I mean that line landed well. Like
Hmm.
still pretty funny. I don't know, like that whole London area section was like um over pretty quick though, because all it was basically her getting into like a new costume, going to getting into an alley fight, and then going to the
The bar to pick up a bunch of dudes.
no, that was after. Like that was like the section after, but like no, him going to the generals or whatever in that room or whatever and giving them the book. That was basically it.
Oh yeah, there's another thing that the place did together. Compare the like supporting characters between the two movies, and they're so different because we can tell you like almost every detail about all the supporting characters, and there's actually more supporting characters in one moment than any of the supporting characters from what you call it. Like one of the things that got me was that like the scene in what you call it, Man of Steel, where like the editor Lawrence Fishburne and then like that one creepy pedo guy and like the intern were trying to save them, and I'm just like, why are they showing these people? We don't care about them. Like they're barely in the freaking thing, and when they are, they don't matter.
The only characters that mattered, like say in Man of Steel, that were supporting characters were Lois and Perry.
Lois
And
and Lois. It was pretty much Lois and the mom. Like you could even remove the editor to have her get rejected off screen, and it would have been the same movie.
I guess, but like Perry like is like I
He's an
said,
important character to the lore, but as far as the movie goes, you could have literally had him reject her pitch
yeah,
over the
like
phone.
I agree. You could have just removed them and it would have still been the same movie. So, but the thing is, the rest of the characters were not. The rest of the supporting characters in Man of Steel were just negligible.
Waste
Like
of screen time, like the freaking Air Force general. Like I don't give a shit about you. Like why are you in all this screenshots?
the Air Force general, the creepy guy in the editorial office.
That one random intern,
Which random intern?
the chick that he was trying to hit on when Lois turned her
Oh
down.
yeah. The only one that's important, but they fucked up because they killed him off was the scientist dude. He's actually important lore to the Superman, and they
Hmm.
killed him off. I was like, what the fuck? When that happened in theaters, I was like, I remember I was watching it and I turned over to Kevin when that happened. I was like, did you just kill him off? And he kind of just looked at me too, like, what the fuck? Look, you were the scientist guy that
Yeah. The one that's on the ship when the Lois gets blown out conveniently.
yeah. Like he's not supposed to die. He's the one of the chief scientists at Star Labs, and which constantly helps Superman out, like during like certain things. And they kill him off, and I was just like,
Oh yeah, why didn't they even? Why didn't they have a Star Labs cameo there? Like why? Like how did they miss that opportunity? Especially when everyone's worried about aliens. I'm like, no one's calling Star Labs.
yeah.
Hello, was their phone number? Was their phone disconnected?
There was like so many things, and oh my god, dude, there's so many characters they fucked up on that movie.
Oh,
Um, the well, I do actually want to say that I think they did a really good job with Saad's second in command, that crazy chick. I forgot her name, but
That's because I don't think they said her name, or if they did, it didn't
no,
matter.
no, they said her name, but like I just can't remember her name because like I never pay attention to her name. Uh,
I thought the
and
actor for Zod did a really good job. They just didn't give him a
I
good movie
gotta
to do it in.
I kind of man, I got annoyed they didn't do his famous kneel before Sod from the original movie.
That would have been something.
That would have been a great reference and throwback to the original, but they didn't do it.
Yeah, but I thought the actor. Here's the thing: I didn't think any of the actors were bad. I just didn't care, like because the script was just terrible. Like,
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the problem is that like the actors can only pull the movie weight so far. If the script is terrible, then the fucking movie is gonna be terrible.
right?
Um, but yeah, like I was saying, that chick was. I think she did a good job, like because her lines were like pretty well given.
I
When
thought it
she,
was funny when that the Air Force commander tried to fucking knife fight her.
yeah, like, I was like, it's like bitch, dude.
I actually like that scene because I'm just like, yeah, motherfucker, you know you're gonna die, but you're gonna go down like a man. Yeah, and then Superman saves him. Like, oh, the one death that I would have cared about, he just fucking undoes. I'm like, oh.
It's like trying to knife Superman. It's like, are you serious right now?
Okay, here's another thing that bothers me that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, I get Zod's a military man, but it's just like, okay, we see Kal-El on Earth, perfectly healthy and super strong, and he's just like, I'm gonna destroy the whole planet because I don't want to have headaches. That just seems really inconvenient. Like,
Actually, speaking of that, like since you brought up that he's a military man, that actually bothered me because they fucked that part up. Because they mentioned that, right? They made that a point to state that he's a military man and that he was bred to be a military person to protect Krypton and this and that, right? And early in the movie, when Krypton's blowing up, he gets his ass kicked by Jor-El, which is a scientist. Like, how the fuck does that even happen?
well,
Like,
I think there's one thing that their eugenics program probably wasn't very good because that's what they were. They were basically Nazis, the Kryptonians.
well, yeah, but you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
it's
I get it. Like,
okay.
no, that's my problem with Clark because they never show him fighting anywhere in the movie, and because what you call it has a headache, he can now fight toe to toe.
Now
Like,
that's bullshit like, because they're both Kryptonians, meaning that they both have the same powers, abilities, and the same weaknesses, right, or whatever. So he can absorb the sun just as well as Superman can. And the moment that he steps out and outside the ship, like the sun's hitting him, and you're gonna give me
well,
the bullshit
for some
explanation that
reason in this
he's
one
working.
they're saying that it's from the Earth's atmosphere and lower gravity. They didn't mention the sun as much, although they did in the beginning. Also, I don't know if the armor they were wearing filters out the spectrum of light that
Oh, give me a second.
empowers them, because most of the glass we have in our cars filter out like solar radiation, UV rays, and stuff like that. So it might have been the same thing because remember the helmet he's wearing is designed to filter out anything that isn't like Krypton from coming through, right? So that's an explanation on why when he breaks the helmet he starts to get the headaches. But like I'm like literally like he seems to get it over like the adaptation sickness like a hangover, and yet like he's like, well, I don't want to have a hangover, so I'm gonna blow up an entire planet. I get he's the military guy, but you train military people to know when to fight. It's not like the military is just gonna use a bomb for every problem when they could send 2 or 3 guys to clear a building. You know what I mean? It was
Well,
like,
there's also the problem at the end with that because he's a military guy, and at the end of the movie, he gets Superman gets the upper hand on him in a chokehold. How the fuck does that happen to a military guy who has years of experience?
maybe no
Like,
one in Krypton ever bothers to use chokeholds because they have
that doesn't
disintegrator
matter
rifles.
if no one used that. I'm just saying that the whole process and the point of that is that someone who has years of experience being a military dude or someone who grew up on a fucking farm, how the fuck do you lose that kind of a fight? especially after the fact that he's no longer in the suit and he's absorbing the whole sun radiation and gaining all the powers that Superman has. There's no way you could have lost that fucking fight in
It's
that
kind of
universe.
weird because they explain it by saying that he's he's being affected by the adaptation sickness, right? But at the same time, they show him like clench his fist and come into focus because he's like super trained and disciplined. So I'm like, okay, so at this point, is he is he under the sickness still, or has he kicked that in fucking literally 5 minutes? Because apparently that's all he needed. Like he wanted to blow up the entire planet because he didn't want people to spend 5 minutes to get used to the powers. It didn't make sense. I didn't notice that the first time. But I'm like, literally, that's the
Yeah,
entire thing. Is like,
actually,
so we
that was
have to get used to this shit. I'm like, you're a military man. You're supposed to be disciplined. And as a military person, if I told you you're gonna be uncomfortable for a few weeks, but you're gonna get extremely powerful, would you do it? And any military person would, because that's what boot camp is.
like there's a lot of nuances or things in the movie that just don't make sense. Like just because they chose to go a certain direction with it, due to
No,
that, there's other things that don't that suffered because of that.
like that rationale makes more sense if you're a part of the other sect, like the political class or something like that, right? But a military person, the idea of having to be uncomfortable for a temporary amount of time so that you become more competent and more dangerous is debate military 101. That's what you do in basic training. And this guy's like, I gotta go to basic training again. Fuck this shit. Blow this place up.
Oh my god, I can't believe it came back to fucking Man of Steel and Shane on it. Like,
It's hard not to shit on Man of Steel. Like, I think that's the one mistake I did by comparing these two movies. Oh, what? Well, like, I think another thing we could take a look at is the tone of the two movies. Because what I said, one thing I liked is Wonder Woman had this good positive energy the whole way there. So when something bad happened, you're like, oh shit. Like
yeah,
Superman, the whole time it was just like, oh my god, we're so emo,
I don't
and this thing
understand why
happens, and we're even more emo. I'm like, that doesn't
like
work.
I don't understand why what your decision was with wanting to do these two movies specifically because these two movies are complete polar opposites of
Well,
each
that's why I think it's good to compare to see what
other.
what makes
Yeah,
a good DC movie and what makes a bad one. Like here's a few things I took away watching them back to back is that a Wonder Woman had a more straightforward, simple storyline that was condensed and easy to understand. Well, that talks and it talks more about substantive things to the character, while or Man of Steel basically talks about nothing the whole time and then rushes to the end and spends their whole time jumping back and forth endlessly for no reason.
the funny thing is both movies are actually the same amount of time. I just checked right now.
Doesn't
Both movies
doesn't like Man of
are
Steel feels like a 4 hour movie?
but yeah, but Man still feels like it drags on so long that it felt like a 3 hour movie of nothing.
Yeah,
You know?
like I felt like that's the entire first hour of the movie. Like goes because nothing happened at
Like
all.
what
Like
sucks too is that like even though like I don't really care for Superman because I find his character boring, I still want him to have like a good movie to go off on so
like
that
you even if like he's not our favorite character, there are like in every Superman thing, there are ones that we will watch and we'll go, yeah, Superman was badass. There wasn't any of that in this one. Like there was no like, hell, he's badass.
yeah, I mean that's why I can still go back and watch Superman 1 and 2 from the 80s, but I cannot watch Superman 3 and 4 because those were god awful.
Didn't watch those, but I'll take your word for it.
Dude, was it 3 or 4? Well, one of those. He goes around dismantling all the nukes or some shit like that, and then somehow I think Lex Luthor creates a nuclear powered man, and since there's no nukes around the world or something, the Earth doesn't have a way to beat this person or some shit. That's the whole premise. It was so bad.
No, that's a pretty stupid idea.
It was just a bad movie.
Is he not?
But
Is he immune to bullets being radioactive? Like,
fucking me hammer. I just remember watching it once. I was like, never again.
yeah, yeah, but like the villains in Wonder Woman also like their motivations made much more sense. Like, I think that's another thing. Like, it's like, hey,
but
because like,
that's kind of hard to say because one of the main villain was a god, and his motivations were like, oh, I
well,
want to.
there's two main villains, Ares, right? And Ares is they establish his motivation in the beginning. He's jealous and doesn't like mankind.
I mean, I don't consider the general a villain because that's just World War I stuff. World
Well,
War One stuff can
well,
happen regardless of what you do.
well, yeah, no, but they did put General Ludendorff as the villain. Like he
Yeah, I
was.
understand that. I'm not saying that he's not. I'm just saying that like that's kind of like a that's something you put in the back burner because that's gonna happen regardless, no
Well,
matter
yeah,
what.
but the fact that that's a benefit to the story because you don't have to explain it, right?
Sure,
Choosing
sure,
a
but
good sometimes choosing a good villain is one that's obvious because you
sure.
don't need to explain it. You don't. It
All,
makes sense without any exposition. Because if
all
you
I'm saying is that like the main villain, Ares, is the fuck. Actually, no, hold on. I forgot my train of thought because you cut me off.
Mhm. I'm gonna interrupt you so I can say nothing.
Yeah, basically. Go on, just continue what you were saying.
No, so like what you call it? Because sometimes a villain can be good, but they require too much explanation, so you can't use them until later on. And whenever Superman has that type of villain, they just go fuck it, let's put it in anyways. Who cares?
Oh, oh, I remember now because you just remember, you helped me remember. Ares' motivation was that he wanted to show Zeus that his creation of mankind, whatever,
It was shit.
was shit and faulty or whatever. But if the gods were already dead and he was the last remaining god, what the fucking motivation was that? He already
Well,
won.
he's a bitter person. Bitter people want to watch the world burn because they didn't believe him. That's
Oh, sure. But what you know what I'm trying to say is
and
like,
he already thinks humans are a piece of shit. So like he wants to get rid of them anyways. He just also wants to show while he's doing that, show everyone that they're a piece of shit. So he's kind of like the guy that's having a bad day and thinks everything sucks and wants everyone to know it sucks. So it's not even just Zeus or the other gods, but he wants all the humans to see how shitty they are too.
no, I get that because like that's a frame of reference of knowing like the Greek cosmology, right? But I'm speaking like in the terms of the movie. If if they're all dead and Ares is the last one, he's already won.
No,
So
even in the movie, he explains that he hates the humans. Like his hatred of the humans themselves is their own thing. It's kind of like if someone's cheating on your wife and you're really mad at your wife on it, it still makes sense that you shoot the person cheating on it because that guy fucked your wife. And that's basically what happened with him. He was jealousy causes you to not only lash out at the thing you want attention for, but at the thing that his attention's from. Both of those become your great hatreds. You know what I mean?
I mean, I guess I just don't.
You've seen this before, like with people that are really jealous, like they end up basically fucking over everything because they just hate everything after a certain point. And that's basically what happens with Ares.
Well, I mean, you're basically saying. Well, I mean, I already knew this, but you're basically saying that Ares was a piece of shit.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Like Ares is a guy that basically he's one of those guys that just sulks around like I hate this guy, I hate that guy. Everyone doesn't believe me. Like what? Like
Like I kind of already knew that, but
like he's the kind of guy that basically is like if you don't agree with me, you're an asshole.
yeah, but I just feel like for the movie's sake, like thinking about it and after watching, it's like you should have gave him something else as a like a goal or maybe something else as a motivation because to me it just seemed like he already won from the beginning because everything else, all the other gods were dead. He was the last one left. It's like so who the fuck cares? Like no one knows that you had this fucking fight except for the
No,
Amazon.
the problem is he cares. And that's why it's important because he was mad that the other gods chose the humans over him. So he hates the god and he hates the humans for being chosen.
But
That's
he
why. That's why it was that.
thing is, the movie they explain that he's the one who started the war against the other gods. It wasn't that they chose him over the humans or anything. He started that himself.
Well, no, because he thought the humans were bad and wanted to wipe them out. And because the gods didn't believe him, he wanted to wipe them out too. That's his MO. Like, here's my thing. These people are bad. I want to show you they're bad. And so we could go wipe them out. And then they're like, no, we don't want to wipe them out. They're fine. Like, Zeus made them. How bad can they be like, all right, I'm going to kill you and then I'm going to kill them because you won't let me kill them.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like left and right politics. They just don't see head to head, so they're like, oh fuck you. They just fuck each other over.
So yeah, well, that's how partisanism is like, which is a separate subject. But like,
Yeah,
I got friends on both sides, and like, I have friends that are like, here's this one event. I'm just gonna cut out all the shit that doesn't align with my view, and this is all. This is, and I only gonna, and it's gonna be one sided this way, and I have one other friend that does. Oh, I just look at those like you're both fucking idiots. The fucking, but yeah, but basically that's what that happened. And if you Greek lore is very like that because the gods were extremely petty. Like that's one thing that make Greek lore interesting is that the gods did all the fucked up shit that humans did, except with superpowers.
You know what I just noticed? My microphone was not fucking set on my
You're good.
OBS for some reason on the scene, so none of my talking was recording. Ah ha
Uh,
ha ha ha.
well, you can download my video and jack the audio from there.
Yeah, I just download your stream and then edit it afterwards.
Oh, he who doesn't do mic checks.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't because of the mic check. It's because like I uninstalled and reinstalled Streamlabs because it was causing problems in Dead by Daylight where the frames were dropping constantly. So I had to like fucking fix everything. And like one of the this is the one scene I use for specifically just full screen capture and that kind of shenanigans that I don't normally use. So I didn't bother to check the mic.
Okay, so it is because you didn't do a mic check
Well,
then.
I didn't check the mic, but like because all of my settings were already fixed to the point that I didn't need to check anything. Like, but this is the one scene I never used after doing the.
Okay, great. So it's because you didn't do a mic check. You didn't know.
Whatever. Sure, fine, whatever.
Because a mic check would have fixed that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
I just the only reason I noticed because I looked at the bar and it wasn't going up or down. I'm like, what the fuck? gotta look at that.
Yeah, I set that shit up all before the stream. That was like what I was telling you, like doing, because like I was like all, like none of my audio was set properly because I hadn't streamed in like forever.
I mean, what else is it talk about with these two movies? I mean, I don't know. I, I don't know what else you want to say. These two movies are just like polar opposites, and like
Well, I think that's why it's interesting. Like, what do you think that like Superman could have done now that we have an idea from Wonder
the
Woman to show
the pro-
people how to do it correctly?
one of the problems I have talking about like these kind of movies, especially like comic book movies, is that, like I feel that whenever they fuck up something, like a film's just kind of like Superman, and I feel like I would have done a better job if I was in charge of it. Not like saying directing it, but like saying like I had like
Producer
um
veto power.
basically like I have creative control and like everybody else was like uh put there to actually create the movie and I was the one telling them how to do it, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's called the producer.
I guess.
Well,
But
because
like
producers can put notes on stuff and basically they can veto any part of the script if you're
yeah,
an executive producer.
I guess that's why basically what I want to do because like a lot of these fucking things could have been fixed with like simple stuff that like people who read comics or just common sense thing could have been fixed.
I don't necessarily know so because a lot of times things are more complicated when you actually have to do it. But what I do believe is that there was no reason for that movie to be so goddamn awful. But I believe that well, from a lot of people blame Warner Brothers. That's probably a lot of people try to shield Christopher Nolan, but I'm like his name's on the box. Oh, I'm t- and the movie was trying to copy a lot of his like lighting and camera and stuff. So I'm gonna put part of the blame on him and what you call it. I definitely blame Snyder because I think all the movies Snyder's touches were bad, and from everything I heard, Wonder Woman didn't really have a lot of Snyder's input on it. Also, the Wonder Woman fight scenes were much better. Like Jesus Christ, this fights. Some of the fight scenes are super good, except the last one. But like, that's a standard problem with superhero movies. The last fights aren't always good. Even Black Panther had a shitty Black Panther fight.
Um, I guess, yeah.
Because did you not notice that in Wonder?
No, I'm not
Bro,
saying Wonder Woman had a good final boss fight. I mean, yeah, especially that's why I call it a final
but you
final.
notice how like a lot of the action scenes in Superman had a lot of cuts in it, like an insane amount of cuts, like and like they were either like super zoomed into, so you didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah, I really dislike that because that was a problem in Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. Like a lot of the fight scenes were like either too close to the water, so you couldn't see what the fuck was going on. And then, have you seen the new Batman trailer? The one that recently came out?
I haven't. I know a lot of people are impressed by it, but
Yeah.
I
So there is this one scene at the end where they actually show him fighting, and there was absolutely no cuts or edits to that scene,
oh
which
my
actually
god.
surprised the hell out of me because I don't like the fucking main actor, like the vampire guy.
Yeah.
Um, I hate that guy. Mainly because uh, who
Patterson, Robert.
yeah, mainly because of the person that introduced me to those movies. We don't want to talk about that, but um, that's why like when he was originally cast for that film, I was like, nah, I'm not watching this piece of shit because like he's attached to it. Fuck this guy, like fuck everything associated with him and whatever. It just brings back bad memories.
For
Um,
me, when I heard
but
about that, I'm just like, Batman's already dead. You killed him.
yeah,
You
like
bastards.
my whole thing that I kept saying was my Batman does not fucking sparkle. That's what I kept saying.
Mhm.
And but the thing is, after seeing that trailer and I saw that there was no edits to that fight scene, I was like really surprised actually, and actually thought it was really well executed because the problem with a lot of these comic book movies is that when it comes to the fight scenes, it's too fucking edited out, so that you can't see what's going on sometimes,
Or it's
or it's
edited badly, because even the one
or it's
shots
edited
were
badly. Yeah.
badly edited, like or edited well. It's just that you don't notice there's cuts. But yeah, I really hate the film style that when you have everything super dark, super zoomed in, and super blurry. Where I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Wonder Woman did great. They had dynamic camera angles that moved, and you also got freaking slow mo at the right time, and it was great. And which is weird to me because Zack Snyder did that that same trick correctly in 300, and just forgot about it in, in Superman.
Really?
This is
How?
slow. Uh, in 300 there's a bunch of slow mo in it, like that's one of the like the there
Oh
was
yeah, yeah,
probably like
yeah.
too much, but in Superman everything was at like full speed or sped up, so you didn't really know what going on the whole time. There was no impact, there was no like they didn't use slow mo at all in any of those in the Superman fight scenes or action scenes.
Oh yeah, because there was a couple examples of slow mo in Wonder Woman, like when she went to that building and she was fighting all the
Yeah, that was amazing, that was epic.
like that slow mo where like someone slams her with a chair or some shit and just breaks on her back and you see like the slow motion effect of it. That was so badass.
Yeah, like and when she's like sliding all over the place like a freaking Smash Brother character, owning everyone else, and they go like speed and then slow down and then speed up and then like changing the motion. I was like, oh my god, that really got you pumped. You're like, yeah, it's like you're getting excited for the part when she's gonna beat someone up. And Superman's just like, what happened? What happened? What? There was something. Squirrel,
You
squirrel.
know, another other good thing about Wonder Woman is like the whole Amazons thing, like the whole the way they fight and they actually show it correctly because that fight sequence on the beach, like really well showed how they fight against people and like their whole like hanging off the horse and shit and shooting the arrow backwards shit, like doing like the jump off the shield and shooting three arrows at those guys behind the rock or whatever. Like their tactics, strategy, and how to out basically out win a you know like a whatever what do you call it fleet of soldiers or whatever.
Yeah.
They showed that off really well in the movie.
Yeah,
They
that's the
also
thing that I liked about it, is that Themyscira felt like a character in of itself, and when you do the location right, that's how it should feel, right? For Man of Steel, the Smallville, Kansas didn't really feel like it had any character. Like if you took out all the scenes, they're pretty much interchangeable. Like all that stuff could have happened in a city, and it would have made no difference. Like if that
yeah
was
well
if any of those events have, the only thing that really matters is that like the small town nature allowed him to keep his secret. But other than that, like there's no character of Smallville. Like I can't tell you anything about Smallville from that thing, even though Smallville's featured prominently in that movie through in all the flashbacks.
yeah because like the only the fuck is wrong with this hold on all they showed is the farm basically in Smallville and like what him like saving the school bus full of children and him getting bullied or whatever. That doesn't really show a lot of Smallville. They
Yeah,
only show
that's. I think it's because that part it deflates when he goes like, "I'm from Kansas." We don't really know what that means because You didn't show us anything specific to Kansas. That could have happened anywhere, and it would have been the same, really. Like as long as it's a rural area, where whenever Wonder Woman calls back to the fact that she's from Themyscira, we know exactly what that means, and we know why it's in some parts it was funny because no one knows what Themyscira is, so we think it's funny because she's like, "I'm from magical witchcraft land," and everyone's like, "What?" You know what I mean? So like, it actually makes sense. Like when he goes to Kansas, we're like, and do like if they showed a scene where like he's in Smallville, Kansas, and like everyone's super moral and uptight, and that's the what he was brought up on, that would make sense. Like, but he didn't call that back. Like there was no scene to call back to. You know what I mean? So when he was talking about like how he's all about small town Kansas lifestyle, it didn't mean anything to us. You're dying. You're dying,
No,
Charles.
sorry,
Got the Rona.
I've been drinking Jaeger while doing this.
Oh shit.
um, so I'm kind of slowing down and getting warmed up.
Well, we're an hour 30 minutes in, so whenever you want to call it, we could call it.
No, no, it's fine. I'm just having to think about what I have to say, you know. But yeah, like if you compare like the what do you call it, the location wise, like Themyscira was such a better location. Like even though it's like a made up place or whatever. Well, Smallville is too, but it's based on like a farmland rural area.
Well, like generally speaking, when you make up a place, there should be a more reason for it to have character because you can make it anything you want,
Yeah,
right?
and Themyscira actually did that so well. Like all the characters there, like the environment, the characters, just the way they talk to each other, just everything about Themyscira, just like new. When you see it, it's like they, you know they did a good job, and like you feel like you're actually there. When you like fucking look at supposedly quote unquote Smallville, you don't think you're actually in Smallville. You just think you're just like in some backwater place that you could go at any time to visit.
It will come to think of it, like all the locations of Wonder Woman had a lot more character detail than any of the locations in like Man of Steel. Like none of them had any character to them. Like
No,
because
none of
they
them.
jumped in, they showed one thing, and then they left. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They could have made any one of those locations had a lot of character, talk about the people, talked about his interaction with everyone. Like, like that waitress that he saved from the pervert, right? It looked like he had a relationship with her. Not saying they were banging, but like they seemed to be friends. You know what I mean? They seemed to know each other. What was that? Like how long had they known her? Like, what did they normally do? Did they ever go out and get a drink afterwards? Like, those are stuff that would have helped fleshed out the story and made all
that
these
that
characters actually make sense.
that guy put me off though. Like I know like they did it for the movie, but that character at the bar that was like a little touchy feely. I'm not gonna say the word because then like YouTube doesn't like it, but the R word. That's what it felt like. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Well, like I get the character. Like that's one of the scenes. Like I felt like instead of doing all these separate scenes, they could have done more into something like that scene and explain it more. Like the fishing boat scene was the same way, where like you don't know who any of those characters are, anyone on the rig, and you don't know, like they're just there. I'm like, if they're not important, then you don't even need to have shown the boat at all. You could have just had them literally cut the entire boat out, had them swim up to that like the oil rig and save it, and it would have been the same scene because those
Well,
guys doesn't matter.
the thing I'm gonna say about that, I feel like that's more of a nitpick because those kind of scenes right there where he's like on the boat and then going to the rig to save these people. Those are like throwaway scenes. They're not actually meant to be like some scary type of location.
No, I get that, but when they have so many throwaway scenes in a movie that doesn't do anything good, you felt like you could have put something actually important instead of putting spending your time and resources in a scene that wasn't important, right?
Yeah,
Because
I
you
think
can't make your movies 10 hours long, so you're gonna have to throw away some scenes. So if you're gonna throw away a scene, throw away a throwaway scene.
yeah, but I think it's more fair to compare that to like say maybe like London scene in Wonder Woman because nothing really happened there, but still like if you want to compare the two, London did a better job at what they did.
London at least established a where the state of the war was,
Yeah, that's what I'm
and
saying. Like it did a better better job. I'm just
Well,
saying
it
like
actually did something. Like if you cut London out, the movie would be a lot weirder.
yeah,
Like
but I'm just
we,
yeah,
it would be a
I'm
much
just
worse movie. If you
I
cut
think
that scene out, okay, you lose one scene where he rescues people. Like we've already established, there's like 3 or 4 of them in there.
yeah, I'm just saying like it's at least you should be a little fair compare like similar things. Like if you want to compare Themyscira to something, I think you want to compare Themyscira to like Metropolis or something like that.
Well, like,
That's a
we
little
could do
more
that,
fair.
yeah. So Metropolis. Well, what are the key aspects of Metropolis life?
But the problem is like I'm bringing that up, yeah, but at the same time,
Well,
I'm
like the
over
two
I'm
places
over.
I think we have the most to talk about in comparison to Themyscira, right, is either
Yeah,
Metropolis or Smallville. I can't say anything about either one.
yeah, that's true. Because I was gonna say like if even if you want to compare Themyscira to Metropolis, I'm still gonna say Themyscira did a better job than Metropolis. Metropolis feels like any fucking city that you go to.
So
Like
we
I don't
know
know,
one thing about Metropolis, exactly one detail. The
they
Daily
made the
Planet's in
fact.
there, and and people like to buy tickets for sporting games. Those are the
Like I
two
mean,
things that relate to the city specifically.
I mean, I know some other things about Metropolis, but I don't think they actually showed it. I think Star Labs is the other
No, no,
thing.
no. I'm not talking about things we know, right?
Oh, okay, okay.
Because we're talking about things that like are character aspects of the city that inform the narrative overall, and there is none. Like,
Um, well, yeah, then it's just the Daily Planet, really.
yeah, the only thing we know is that like freaking Lois Lane works there. Wow, such a powerful story. It's just like oh my god, a person works at the city.
I mean, yeah, that's why like the locations didn't do anything for me either in Man of Steel.
Like
Like
the runtime of the movie was what, like 2.5 hours for both of them, or like 2 hours.
yeah, they're focusing
So
around one time. Yeah,
like, and when you have that much time, and we can't name anything specific about any location in any of the show. We can't make anything talking about what are the people's general experience there, what was daily life like. We have none of those details, and like when there's so much detail in Wonder Woman, and there's so little detail in what you got. Considering how much time they wasted covering stupid shit, that's why I'm like, that's why when I say like when you go, oh, those are nitpicks, I don't think it is, because when you have so much of it, right, and there's so little of everything else, it's like if I'm cooking a dish and I just like put like 2 pounds of pepper on it, and you're like, then no salt, and you're like, you're gonna be like, it's not a nitpick that there's too much pepper at a certain point when like the entire dish is black. You know what I mean?
well, okay. Uh, I gotta be fair though. At least I want to be fair. I think that they did a good job with the location though. One location, and that's Krypton. Even though like they
Oh
made
yeah,
it
no, I
seem
think you're right about that. Krypton did a pretty decent job
yeah,
of
yeah, like
basically established them as eugenics Nazis.
yeah, because like Krypton had its own like culture, civilization, ideas, and all that, and actually I think they portrayed that relatively well.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
I think you could
fair.
say that.
So I think like it's you can compare Krypton to Themyscira at the very least. I think those two are very more fair because the rest of the locations was just like throwaway trash,
So like the
and that's
only
pretty
time where
bad.
they did anything right was the intro scene, and everything else was just garbage, is what we're saying.
Yeah, and that's kind of sad because like Wonder Woman had other locations too, like for example London, and then the front lines,
That one cafe city like was pretty cool. How they set
and
that.
then the castle too.
Yeah,
So like Wonder Woman had a lot more locations, but the problem is that were like actually memorable, or at least that they were.
they were
Man
actually
of Steel
done,
didn't
so
have
you could go
one.
like, yeah, there's that place. It's just like Superman is just like a random town, a random city, cut back to a random town, cut back to a random city, cut back to a random town, cut back to this fucking like oil rig for some reason. It's like,
So yeah, so if you want to compare the Mascara with Krypton, like that's more fair, I think. But
I still
I
don't
don't
get
know.
the point of the oil rig scene. Like I don't understand why they had that in the movie at all.
I don't know. But like I want to compare those two, but like I think at the end of it, I would still like prefer to Mascara only because um personally I actually like the Amazons whenever they show the Amazons because I feel like the Amazons are very like in the lore of everything when it comes to
It's
like
important.
no, no, no. I mean, like when it comes to like the groups of people in the DC lore universe, not just the movie, but just in comics in general. I think the Amazons are the most like best fighters in the universe when it comes to
Mm.
like on Earth, because their tactics and how they fight are superior to a lot of people.
Hmm.
Like even to people like Batman and like and other beings like that, like Deathstroke or something.
I
The
think another
Amazons,
important thing to note that I think one of the reasons why Themyscira came off stronger than what you call it Krypton is that Krypton happened and then literally doesn't tie in again until an hour into the movie when Zod shows up. Where Themyscira happens and and its effects are felt throughout the movie because Wonder Woman, right?
well, it's still there. It doesn't die. I mean,
No, no,
that's what.
it didn't die, but like you get what I'm saying, right? In Krypton, the events happen, and it doesn't matter that it happened until an hour into the movie, an hour later in the movie, because the reason why the Krypton stuff was important is because it informs us about Zed or Zod, and Zod doesn't show up until like an hour, hour and a half later, where Themyscira is important because it informs us about who Wonder Woman is, and Wonder Woman's in the entire movie. So the entire movie, we have extra information that we could use to understand the scenes. Where Krypton literally doesn't matter for most of the movie
Well,
because
the funny thing about that is that you say that it doesn't matter. Like, remember how I said that? Like, what pissed me off was that they didn't mention Brainiac.
yeah,
What if they actually mentioned Brainiac during Krypton's events and they showed him like escaping Krypton's destruction? That would have made more of an impact to you, right? Like,
uh,
even though it wouldn't have shown like
for
Brainiac.
me it wouldn't. What I think would have been better is if they showed the pod landing, right, crash landing, and then Superman. They focus in on the Smallville scene and show him as his purpose trying to figure out more about where he came to be, his origins, because like let's just say like he knows he isn't the biological parents, like at some point he finds out, right? So a lot of people that are adopted, the common storylines for them that has worked in the past is that they want to find out about the origin. That would have given us something to latch onto, like, hey, he's traveling the world looking, finding out who he is. That would make all that other stuff make more sense, and then you could get that Krypton scene still when you finds the spaceship, right?
Yes, but I'm talking about location versus location because we're talking about like Krypton versus the Mascara. If we're talking about like the impact of Krypton, how like it was lackluster compared to the Mascara, I'm saying that like if they made some kind of like better reference to like Brainiac as a presence on Krypton and escaping to make a future later villain later, I think that would have made a better impact and made the location not
It would have
better.
made an impact, but not in the movie, because the problem
No,
is
sure,
that
sure.
the
Yeah,
the,
I
the
know.
problem with the movie is that nothing that happens in Krypton's matter until Zod shows up an hour later.
Yeah, of
So
course. I know it wouldn't make an impact for the movie. I'm just saying, like, for the
like
location wise.
what would have been better is if they showed him crash landing and you didn't know about Krypton, and then you had to find out, and the goal was to find out about it. And they could have put some Brainiac Easter eggs in the crash landing capsule. There's no reason why it couldn't be. Like, there could have been a message on it that went, "Hey man, this planet went to crap because of something that Zod and Brainiac did." It's like, you
Yeah.
know, and that
Well,
could have been the driving force for him to go out and find out who he is. You know,
yeah.
that
Well,
would have been equivalent to like R2D2 showing up in Star Wars, going, "Hey, here's something you should know. Let's go find that out," and then that'll give your character something to do. And the problem is, like, in the first hour, literally Clark had nothing to do. It was just like randomly moving about, waiting for the movie to start. Like, I think that's the explanation of Man of Steel is like waiting for the damn movie to start.
also, I think it was bad that, like, you don't understand what Clark is doing when he's wandering around aimlessly, like, throughout that whole period. You know how, like, he's, like, saving people randomly when he's an adult or whatever, on, like, in a rig, at that bar, whatever. Um, they don't explain why he's doing that until, like,
Like,
later. It's kind of like
what you
off
get the
putting, like,
feeling of, because the problem is they never actually say that, and they never actually show that. But what it seems to be is that because his dad told him just to be anonymous and don't get found out, that he moves to a place, and then people start getting wise that he may not be normal, and then he leaves and people forget about him. But they never say that, and I think that would have been better if it, instead of being like a flashback, it was just a concurrent scene of him like living in the city for a while, acting normal, meeting friends, trying to be normal, doing stuff, and then getting found out moving. And they could have done that like once or twice, and then have the movie start, and that would have been fine. But they didn't do that. They just kept flashing back, which completely broke up the story pacing and made it so like you don't know what's going on. Like why I'm at a bar now, why I'm at this, because you don't like one thing doesn't flow into another. It's just you're just like fucking snapping back, teleporting around the storyline. Like I felt like that book read that movie read like a book where the pages are stuck together. So when you're reading, it just skips around. You're like, what happened? Like how we end up there?
I just, like, I don't know, man. Like I was talking to Kevin a couple of days ago about the DC universe, and like I brought up Man of Steel of how like I believe
Does Kevin still like Man of Steel? Because I remember when we first watched it, he liked it.
I don't know. I didn't ask him about that. I'm mainly where the subject was like how fucked up the DC universe, DC cinematic universe is, and what they could do to fix it. And I just brought up the point that like in my opinion, I think they started the DC cinematic universe at the wrong point because they started it with Man of Steel, but they did it in a way where like they weren't sure if that's what they wanted to start at, because what came after Man of Steel was Batman vs Superman, but that was like years after Man of Steel, so it felt like they weren't sure what they wanted to do. And since they started up, and then since they decided to use Man of Steel as the anchor point to jump off this universe, I think that was a fuck up because
No,
that
I don't even think it's a fuck up to start with the Superman movie first. I think what their fuck up is that they were so impatient that they had the franchise on fast forward and it didn't allow you to enjoy anything. I also
yeah,
think there's another problem is that they have and then syndrome where they keep adding shit to the movie, and the movie becomes too complicated, too convoluted, and too stupid to catch anyone's attention.
yeah, but that's the point. Like trying to get to. They started at Superman. They decided to start there, but when Batman vs Superman came out, it was years later, and at that point, no one actually knew whether Man of Steel was part of the universe. They were just like, "What the fuck is this?" kind of thing. Like certain people like kind of like put two together, or they thought that that was connected, but like they didn't really know until like the casting came through, right? Until they actually said, "Oh, what's his whatever the actor's name for Superman is going to be in the movie,"
Or
right?
you're saying that like action real lifetime that the movies released far apart from each other that we didn't know if it was a reboot or a continuation?
Yeah, because like when they announced Batman vs Superman, the titles like were like, "Oh, this is cool," but like, is this is this where the cinematic universe is starting, or did it start somewhere else? So we're like,
I
"What
don't
the fuck?"
know. I don't remember that being affected that way. I always assumed it was a direct sequel to Man of Steel. I thought it was stupid that they jumped to it too so quickly because I'm like, the formula is whatever your ensemble thing is, you give each one of them a movie, and then you start, and then you introduce one guy that's gonna be in a future movie. So in this case, like in Batman versus Superman, it would have been like fucking like Cyborg or some shit. Or no, Cyborg was in Justice League, but technically they did that with like uh actually technically they introduced both Batman and freaking Wonder Woman at the same time, which was dumb. They should have at least did a Wonder Woman or a Batman movie first. Like at least cuz
Like, yeah, but like as I was talking to Kevin about this, he's like, um, saying that they did. It feels like, or at least from his perspective, that they didn't want to do or copy Marvel's style or plan of introducing individual movies and then going from there. It feels like you said earlier, they rushed and wanted to catch up to Marvel, so they released
I
Batman
think
vs
they
Superman.
wanted the Avengers money
What?
first because basically like the Avengers is the big movie, that's the one everyone goes out and it makes a ton of money, right?
Yeah.
So I think they wanted the Avengers money right away, and I think they were hoping that they could just skip to the Avengers stage and just keep pumping out Avengers instead of
Yeah,
having to do a bunch of separate movies.
but whose
That's kind of
idea
what it felt
was
like.
the thing is, whose idea was that? Was that the studio or was that Zack Snyder? Who's the person who decided to
It's
go
hard
that
to say
route?
because everyone's gonna be blaming everyone else because nobody wants to land on that grenade, right? I'm tempted to say the studio, but at this time, I no longer give Zack Snyder or Nolan any leeway for how bad those movies turn out. So I'm gonna say all of them, but there are some evidence that suggests that the studios did that because apparently there's a lot of reporting that the studios fucked around with Suicide Squad a lot, and that's why it turned out to be so terrible. So,
I did hear rumors like that too.
so I would say they all had something to do with it. For all the stupid repetitive shots, I'm blaming Zack Snyder because that's his thing. He likes getting specific shots that look cool, regardless of if they actually make sense in the stuff. I think for the stories being so bloated, that's kind of the studios because the studios kind of want the checkbox link. Like, hey, wouldn't it be nice if this movie had Batman, Superman, fucking Bizarro, whatever? Just keep throwing shit in until it becomes good, and it doesn't. It's like it's like what happens when you like order everything on the menu and put it in one bowl and try to eat it. It's like that's fucking WB for some reason. Like when they make superhero movies. Like,
No, like before watching Man of Steel again, I forgot that the Zack Snyder was behind that film. So like I was kind of surprised to like when I saw the movie and see the credits and see his name on there. I was like kind of surprised about that.
one of the nicknames for the DCU is like the Snyderverse because like that's his universe of movies. And I think during Wonder Woman, that's when he started stepping away because he had the shit with his daughter, from what I heard. So I think that's probably why. But I also think probably because Patty Jenkins is had a clear vision of what she wanted and she didn't give a shit what Snyder thought. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why the movie turned out well. Like I give a lot of credit to Patty Jenkins for Wonder Woman because she figured it out first.
I mean, yeah, but she did Wonder Woman great. Like,
And she would have had the same problems with the studio that Zack had, especially because she probably would have had more because she wasn't well known to a lot of people before that. I don't know what she made before that Wonder Woman. So like, and Zack Snyder was already famous before then. Although, in my opinion, I only know one movie that he did was good because Sucker Punch was garbage. I don't care what Mark says. That's a garbage movie.
funny thing is, I actually enjoyed watching Sucker Punch.
Sucker Punch. All the problems I hate with Sucker Punch are the same reason I hate Man of Steel. It does almost all the same thing. Convoluted storyline, check. Really gray, black, like bland color scheme throughout the whole movie. Like I don't care that you're gonna have some scenes that are gray and brown and gray, because of course that's gonna happen. But if the whole movie's brown and gray, it doesn't matter that it's brown and gray. You might as well be colorblind watching those damn movies because there's no color in them. Like,
Well,
and then like the convoluted storyline, Sucker Punch right there, convoluted as fuck. I have no idea what's going on.
how many times did you watch that movie?
I watched it once. I wanted to shoot myself because it was
Oh,
god
okay.
awful.
Well,
I'm
I
not
only
gonna watch
watched
it twice. I don't care.
I only watched it once, but I did actually enjoy it the one time I did watch it.
How much
I,
Jaeger were you on, man? Like,
nothing. I think I watched it in the theater with you guys. I was.
they serve alcohol at the theater. You know that. We've been drinking at the theaters plenty.
Yeah, but I don't think but that movie was such a long time ago. I don't think we were doing that back then.
I watched it on Blu-ray at Mark's house because he bought it and he wanted to watch it. I'm like, okay, Zack Snyder 300. This got to be good. Watching it with this is god awful. I have no idea what. Why the hell are we? Why the hell are we in Japan? Why the hell? What the hell is this freaking cyberpunk World War One shit?
That's funny because like I only remember watching it in theaters. I don't remember watching it in anyone's house.
Maybe it's better at theaters. I don't know. I watched it at Mark's place, and I was just like, "This is so god awful." And that's when I realized that giving Snyder complete control isn't always a good idea. I think Snyder is kind of like George Lucas. If you sit on top of him and go, "No, that's a terrible idea," he might be okay. But if you go, "Hey, George Lucas, you can do whatever you want," you get Phantom Menace.
He did a good job with 300 and with Watchmen though.
I liked Watchmen, yes. I wasn't sure if he made that one, but I did like it. So now that you confirmed it, yeah. But I think Watchmen, like I had a feeling that he didn't get complete control of what he wanted to do.
Granted though that with things like 300 and Watchmen, like I never read those comic books, so like I think I suffer from that problem where like
You're me in this case.
yeah, I'm you with this, where like I don't have any prior knowledge
So
or
I actually have more knowledge on Watchmen but it was post facto, not previous to watching it, because Mark had the like animated comic and we watched it together, and I can tell you that Watchmen, they changed the shit out of the villain. The end, the big bad at the end wasn't Doctor Manhattan.
Oh no. I found that out later. It was like a giant octopus or some bullshit.
It's a giant octopus with Houdini's psychic brain in it.
Yeah.
Which I get why they cut that out, because try explaining that in a 2-hour movie, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. Like there's some things that was cut out, but like I think the thing is, what I was trying to say there is like, if I'm being you in that sense, what I want to get at in this point is that, like, I can understand that sometimes if you go into a movie that you have no previous knowledge of its lore or context of comics or source material or anything, that you actually might enjoy it more if you don't have that knowledge priorhand, because then you can't nitpick, you can't see where the faults are, you can't like say, oh, this is wrong, this didn't do this, they didn't do that, whatever, they screwed up this character, they screwed up this location, whatever. So like, I think sometimes when you go blind into something, you have a better experience. But in this case, when it comes to Superman, like,
well, I agree with you that like your prior knowledge can color the way you think. That's why a lot of times I try to watch a movie as the movie itself, and most of the time because I don't know a lot. But that's why I say a mark of a good adaptation is it makes the fans of the source content happy, and it makes the new people happy, and you have to do both, because there are movies that are example of being very faithful to the source mechanic and being a terrible movie. World of Warcraft is one of them, where if you played World of Warcraft, you're like, I get what's going on. If you don't play World of Warcraft and you watch the World of Warcraft movie, you're not going to know the fuck is going on. Because that movie was like a love letter to the original lore, and anyone who didn't know it could go fuck themselves.
I mean, that's why, like, sometimes
you have to balance it. It has to be good for the returning customers and the new people. If you go too far on one side, nobody watches the movie. If you go bad the other, nobody watches the movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's like really hard for me sometimes trying to talk about these things, because like I'm so attached to like, especially when it comes to comic book movies, DC and Marvel. Is like I know where most of the time where they fuck up or where they do things right or whatever, and like for me it's like, for me to be happy and enjoy myself, I want them to recreate what I saw in the comic books in live action. And like, I understand that some things cannot be done on live action because of limitations and whatnot, but I don't enjoy it when they gut things out of the fucking movies that are part of the lore. I don't enjoy when they like screw up characters for no reason, like other than like, oh, we wrote it this way. Well, if you wrote it that way, why couldn't you write it the other way? Like, that's my question.
Well, for me, I get sometimes why they have to cut things out, but for me, my thing is, if you put it in the movie, it should be important to the movie, and you should be something that's doable within the movie. Like, for my first example, like, there's a saying, is like, if there's a scene where you put a gun on the wall in Act 1, you better have in Act 2 you better pull the gun out and shoot something with it. Like, that's kind of a mentality of like writing, because the whole point is, we like, when we're watching a movie, we're supposed to be watching the best parts of life, right? Like when I started doing like my short videos, I learned a lot of about what making a good video is cutting out all the boring shit. So a good movie cuts out all the boring shit that isn't important, right? So but at the same time, you also have to add in the good shit, and they need to do that in the right combination, because if you cut all the boring shit and there's no good shit, you have nothing. So I think Superman suffers from both. They don't add stuff that would have made the story more interesting, and they didn't cut shit that wasn't necessary. Like, as I said a million times, I'll complain a million times more. Like, I don't need to see that guy save people 14 times, and I would like to have seen, like, here's one thing I asked from Matt. I had one scene of him beating up someone that was doing something villainous, like a robbery, like a real rapist, like not to like the sexual harassment shit, but like an actual, because he didn't deal with any person that was a danger to another human being. He dealt with industrial accidents or forces of nature. but he never dealt with, and I felt that was really weird because he never dealt with like intelligence, malevolent intelligence is what I call it, right? Like somebody who's willingly doing something bad because they're a bad person. That literally doesn't happen anywhere involving what you call it, Superman, until Zod shows up. Like,
Well, that's the problem with that character in general. Superman is very flawed that way in on the big screen. Like he's
no, well, like
Superman.
the classic
Like,
thing about Superman is he hears someone getting robbed. He goes into a phone booth and he turns into Superman by taking off his glasses and changing his clothes, and he beats someone up. That's a classic thing he does. And you know what movie did that better? Deadpool. Deadpool did Superman better than fucking Superman.
that's just you trying to be funny. But what I'm talking
It's
about,
true though. He
what I'm trying to say is like you made a point where like, um, fuck. Well, you made a point, and I was trying to suggest that they were right. It's like the character of Superman is so fucking boring sometimes because all the threats on Earth, saving random people here and there, like bank robbers, murderers, whatever, those are not real threats to him. That's something he could do with his eyes closed, his hand tied behind his back, or whatever. Like, in order for the movie to be interesting, or any stories with regarding Superman, it has to be like some world-ending event, or like something that can actually kill Superman.
well,
Because
not necessarily. I call that the Batman bias because with Batman, everything's a danger to him, and he has to deal with it because he's so good, right? With Superman, it's about his personal connections that he has with people, and the things he has to do and the challenges he has to do to save those people that he feels close to. But the reason why this movie felt so hollow as a super, because in the Superman, it's a reoccurring theme that Lois will go places that she shouldn't go to and get herself in trouble, and he has to bail her out, right? And he's and the where Superman's vulnerable is that no matter how strong he is, all the people he loves is weak and vulnerable compared to him. Of course,
but
the problem is there was no one we cared about in that movie other than
sure,
Superman.
like the thing with that is that's like a problem outside away from him personally, like humans being weak and vulnerable and all that. The thing I'm trying to get at is like he's so boring when it comes to the context because nothing is a threat to him unless it's like a world-ending event, like another Kryptonian like Zod interfering with him, or like Doomsday, or Brainiac, something like that's like on par with his power level. Like,
Not necessarily like they.
yeah,
You just introduce kryptonite, and that like it's still bad. The story's still bad, but that's how they make non-role-ending events dangerous to him. Is just
that's
introduce
what
kryptonite. Kryptonite.
Batman though. I'm talking about like just specifically Superman stories. They're all terrible in a sense, unless like it's something supernatural that could kill him, or that's nearly impossible to kill him. Like all the events that happen on Earth, where like he's fighting like some gangs or some like random people on the street. That's nothing. He has to be fighting a Doomsday. He has to be fighting that guy's name? Dark Side. He has to be fighting Brainiac. He has to be fighting all these villains. Like people like the Toy Man, Livewire. These people are from Earth. They're not really a threat to him. They're just like, oh yeah, you're more of a nuisance. But like that's why I think it's so hard to write or make movies about Superman too, because like if the villain is not a threat to him, then why the fuck do we care like to watch?
Well, again, it's because of the personal connections. Strong supporting characters, I think, are necessary for a Superman movie because a lot of what happens with Superman evolves around his interaction with people. Because, like in the Superman 1 and 2 that you mentioned, I'm pretty sure he's just as hard to kill in those movies as he was in the new one. But you actually gave a shit about his supporting characters. Lois actually had a personality that was interesting. Like,
And
this is coming from a person that likes Amy Adams. I didn't give a shit about Lois Lane most of the movie either.
well, I mean, you mentioned supporting characters, but like all the supporting characters here, we already established that we didn't give a shit about them.
Yeah, like, exactly. Like I think the one that is the strongest supporting character is his mom, but like I don't think they make good.
His mom's one of the best characters in the movie.
Yeah, like they don't make good use of her. but like you legitimately feel like he gave a shit. Although I really wanted them to pull the trope of the fucking Midwestern person walking out their porch with a lever action when like the fucking aliens showed up, and they didn't do that. But I understand that that doesn't necessarily fit her character, but it would have been nice to see that.
Uh,
But like yeah, like you like a lot of what Superman does is typically two of his friends are about to die at the same time, and he's fucked because he needs to save both of them somehow. And you like both of those characters, and you don't want anything bad to happen to them. Except we did. There was like one character that we didn't want anything bad to happen, and she was never in danger.
but see, there's a problem with that kind of like.
Well, I'm not saying there's not a problem. I'm just saying like that's generally where a lot of Superman's non-world ending interesting stories come from. And you should be able to have more interesting stories than that. That's what you're saying, and I agree with you. But I'm saying like you should, if you're gonna make a Superman movie, you need at least get that right, because if that's his strong suit, you need to at least try to get that correct first before you try to do anything else.
The example you gave of like there's two people he has to rescue that he both likes or loves or whatever, and that's stupid. That's bullshit because he's almost as fast as Flash. He's not as fast as Flash, but he's almost as fast as Flash, meaning that he could be generally saving two people at once if he wanted to. So that kind of scenario doesn't work for me because like someone like me that knows somewhat of Superman's powers and abilities, that's just a bullshit like story or quote unquote
Well,
that guy planned.
generally
It doesn't
speaking, in the
work.
movie, he doesn't. We don't necessarily know that he's that fast yet, and he may not be. He may not know that he's that fast first, because remember, he didn't know he could fly in the movie too.
Sure.
So it's possible that he gets in that situation because of his own goddamn ignorance, which it's perfectly believable within the confines of that story, because he didn't know he could fly until he was told he could fly.
But they have to like say, like you said, if we don't know that he's that fast, they actually have to state that one way or another, whether he is or isn't. In
Well,
order
no.
for us to
Sometimes you
matter.
find out when he's pushed to. Like there's the
Yeah,
classic
sure.
trope of the
I'm
woman
saying is that
lifting a car when their kids under. If that would have been him, that he would have found out, and that would have been an interesting moment. It's like, hey, I didn't know I could have done that, but I forced myself to because I gave a shit about you.
but that
The
goes back
problem is,
to
most of the movie, it didn't seem like he gave a shit about anything. Even when he was rescuing people, he kind of seemed like he was doing it because he was bored, not because he actually gave a shit about the people on the fucking oil rig or anything like that.
but that goes back to the problem of like people like me who know his lore, his backgrounds. Like he he that would never happen. Like even in a Superman movie, like that's just total bullshit. Like
For
that would
me,
never
every
happen.
hero has a point where they're retarded, like Batman Year One, and this movie could have been Superman Year One, and that would have been fine with me.
Sure, like
Especially like if they
people like
used the idea that I pitched earlier, which was maybe focus the first half of the movie on Smallville, like or at
no,
least the
like,
first act
I get that. Like
entirely.
if you want to go with that direction where it's like
Like it doesn't have to be the
one
entire movie. I'm not saying people are falling out of buildings the entire movie and he has to save them, but like
I guess my problem with that is that because you brought that up, right? I guess my problem is that since I like know a lot of information about Superman, it's like
make up your mind. You either know or you don't, because you said
no no
you
no
switch your mind across this
no no no
conversation.
no. I know a lot about Superman, but I don't know like as much as Kevin does. Kevin is like has so much more knowledge about Superman. I know enough like that'll get me by. But what I'm trying to say is like me being a person that knows enough about Superman or knowledgeable about him, like it like annoys me because then it puts me in this position where like it's like, well, this is the he wouldn't do this or this wouldn't affect him or this or that, whatever.
Well, you
Like,
you the problem I
like
have with your
hold on,
analysis of things though is that you don't take into timeline.
no, I know,
You
but
you
I'm just
basically
gonna say,
take into a timeline of his max power state and assume that throughout his entire timeline. You could just pick a time where that wasn't true.
that's what I was
And
getting to actually. That's what my point I was gonna get to. It's like the problem is that people like me who know all this information are coming from the standpoint that, oh, well, this is we're talking about Superman who's already had this knowledge and has years of experience, but then like we're watching a film where it's his first time being Superman, basically year one Superman, right? Where he's a dumbass, where he doesn't know all his powers, abilities, and whatnot. So he has a lot of potential to be a fuck up or to mess things up. So like like now like think about it in that sense. Like I understand why maybe in the movies they do certain things. It's just but it's still very hard coming from my field of vision, you know. And
Another
not
thing I
like
think they could have done with the story to justify why he was so hesitant to use his powers is have something actually go wrong when he uses his powers. This is a very common trope in superhero movies, and there's been a
yeah.
lot of good examples. Like, let's just say he was trying to stop a bank robbery and he actually severely injures one of the bank robbers, and that's why he doesn't go around saving people, and that's why he doesn't use his power, and that's why he's trying to hide. And maybe he's guilted by that. That would
You
have
know,
been an interesting character development.
they could have done that with that scene with his dad, where it's in the tornado, where his dad told him not to save him. They could have done it in that scene where like he went against his dad's wishes or whatever and tried to save him, and instead of saving him, he fucked up and got him killed anyways.
Or like,
That
let's just say like his dad. There's a scene earlier, before that, where his dad takes him to the city, right, Metropolis, and that there's some sort of crime event happening, and he tries to intervene, and he fucks up, botches it horribly, and someone gets hurt, and then his dad's like, "You gotta promise you never do that again." And then when he's planning to save his dad, that flashback hits him, and then he sees his dad steps out and goes no, and that would have made more sense that he didn't save his dad at that point.
funny that you brought that up. There was actually a scene like that in the animated series of Superman, I think, or Justice League. It was one of the two. I don't remember specifically, but I remember like his mom and dad were at a bank, and the bank got hit by like some super villain or some bullshit, and like Superman got there to save them, you know, whatever. But like I think the dad gets injured in the process. So like something like that already happened in the animated series. They could have just used dad as a tool in the movie to like make him learn like from his mistakes. You know?
Yeah, like that's another problem I have is that generally speaking, if you look at his flashbacks, he didn't really do anything like specifically wrong. Like, sure, he might have gotten caught, but he was saving people. Like, there wasn't any moral failings on his part, and I think that really detracts from his character. Like,
Well, that's why I don't like Superman. Like as a character, it's like he can do no wrong basically. Like everything he does is in the sense of saving people and whatever. So like even if he gets caught doing it,
well, I don't think all the
whatever.
Superman stories are like that.
No,
Like,
no, 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 they're not all like that. I'm just saying like the character himself. It's just like it's just a problem I have with the character. It's not the movie necessarily.
you're
It's
just
the character.
biased, fool. Just
I
admit you're a
am.
Superman hater.
I am. I don't like the character because basically his only
For
weakness is like
Superman, I'm kind of like
and
not
magic.
enthusiastic about, but I don't hate him. If I see a good Superman storyline, I'll say it's good. If I see a bad one, I'll say it's
I'm not
bad.
saying that I'm
I
not
just
gonna.
think that a lot of the storylines that are strong with Superman are less appealing to me than like the standard storylines that will be like good with other characters.
Yeah, basically, I'm not saying that I'm gonna like not like a good Superman movie. I'm just saying like there's it's very hard to write a movie for Superman because he's too fucking strong, and the only thing that's not gonna defeat him is magic and kryptonite. So you need like a world-ending effect. That's why I'm saying like characters. They need characters like Darkseid, Doomsday, or whatever to like make a good movie for Superman. But they wasted those kind of characters. They wasted Doomsday and Batman vs Superman.
Okay,
I
so
was so fucking pissed off about that.
right. That we have to go into that like another time. Okay, so
Yeah.
I think we're getting close to wrapping this up, but what do you think they should be doing with the future of the Wonder Woman and Superman franchises?
Well, it's kind of hard to say about Wonder Woman because we only have one movie to go off on. I mean, we can try to use Batman vs Superman and Justice League, but that's not really a lot of reference. As
Or
far
what
as
what's
like,
one thing you want to see that you haven't seen yet? Maybe they'll show up in the next movie, who knows? From Wonder Woman.
I want to see her fucking fly.
It's looking
But
close to that. I thought the scene in the trailer where she's lassoing lightning was
I
pretty
mean,
badass. But that's not flying though,
no,
so
no, no, it's not. But that's also nitpicking on my part. Like,
yeah.
but the thing is, like, I don't like characters' powers being stripped from them. Like, that's just I
Uh
just call bullshit on that.
I have certain situations where that really bothers me. Like that's basically one of the things that annoys me about Umbrella Chronicles. But that's a different day that we could talk about if you're interested. But um, generally speaking, for characters losing powers, I think there's a way that's bad on it.
I mean, if you can make it into a story, like say, red kryptonite with
For
Superman,
me,
or
I get kind of annoyed in a nitpicky way when everyone's ability is super the same, kind of like what happened with Dragon Ball. So, um, I don't necessarily mind that she doesn't fly. I always thought that her flying lore was inconsistent between franchises, like the the '90s Justice League cartoon where she has an invisible jet. I'm like, where the fuck? If she can fly, why does she need the
yeah,
jet?
yeah.
Like,
A lot of people joke about that and make fun of that because like she can fly. Why the fuck is she in an invisible plane for? What the fuck does she need
and
that?
why is like? Yeah, I remember when the plane's invisible, she's still visible. So like, what the fuck is the point? Like,
There was
is it?
actually a joke about that on Family Guy. Like she was in an invisible plane, and then she went to the bathroom in the plane, and Superman was next to her, and she could see her. And then she comes back to the pilot. She's like, "I see you didn't wash your hands." like, like that plane, the whole plane thing with Wonder Woman is just so retarded. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck were they thinking?
But like yeah, like so it doesn't bother me that she doesn't fly unless for some reason she should be able to fly and it gimps her. And so far that hasn't happened. Um
Well, I mean, it's gonna gimp her later because when there's like,
well then again when it gimps her she might find out that she can fly then like or
yeah, maybe.
maybe like she
Because
gets the boots of Hermes and that's what gives her the flight
because
power in
there's
this
gonna be
timeline.
like the Green Lantern people can fly, the Hawk people can fly, Brainiac can fly. Um, there's other characters in the Justice League lore that they fight that can fly. So like her not being able to fly,
Well, that's why
that
like I don't care if she has a flight because I don't want everyone to have the ability to fly. Once everyone
that's
flies, it's just the same as walking.
no, because that's a way to separate some of the other characters because Batman's the only one who cannot fly. So making
Bitch
everyone
can't
else
fly. He
fly.
can get a jetpack or a
No.
fucking
Well,
plane.
yes, but he can't fly. So like the problem
It's like saying Iron Man can't fly.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, like, when all the other characters of the main Justice League members can fly, except for Batman, it puts him in an awkward
Whoa,
position.
whoa, whoa! Let's be fair. So far, the Justice League has 4 people in it
So
officially:
far, officially, yeah.
Cyborg,
But even
Superman,
but even
Batman, and
yeah, I
Wonder
know,
Woman.
but
And if we're using your rule
Cyborg
set
can
where
fly.
equipment doesn't count,
Yeah, but like
only
Cyborg
Superman
can
can
fly.
fly.
Cyborg can fly.
He didn't
Um,
fly in the what you call it.
he can actually fly.
He
He goes
can
once.
fly. So, but that argument doesn't make any difference from Wonder Woman because we don't. Because your argument is he hasn't flown, but he can fly. We don't know that that isn't also true for Wonder Woman.
Okay, sure, you got me there. But I'm just trying to say,
Got
like,
him.
I'm just trying to say, like, these characters that people have known and grown with, their abilities and
Yeah, but
powers,
Charles, you have to
whatever.
understand. We know them through fucking like 13 seasons of Justice League. We can't expect them to pack that
No,
much shit into
it's
fucking two
comic,
hours.
it's comic books too. It's
Well,
like
yeah, but
saying,
yeah, comic books like like a comic books like a chapter can be translated into an hour sometimes depending on how they're written.
sure, but
So
it's like saying if you read like Harry Potter books, right, and you know the source material, and then they fucking go to the movie and Harry Potter can't use his wand for some fucking reason in the movie, like you'll be like, what the fuck, like that kind of thing,
well,
you
it
know?
depends on when, because again, like you have to look at timeline wise, because characters don't always know all their abilities off the bat. They acquire them over time as the lore develops, and especially because you yourself acknowledge there's only been one Wonder Woman movie, like actual
Well,
Wonder
there
Woman
is,
movie. So it's not like they could basically put one Wonder movie out. Even if you look again, because she's supposed to be a god or demigod, Thor acquired his abilities over time, even in the MCU.
I got your last part, but I didn't get your first part. You kind of broke up.
Or well, I think characters develop their powers over time, and there's only one Wonder Woman movie, like you noted. So we're not going to expect her to have her full complement of all her abilities she's ever known in the first movie. That would be kind of
Well,
weird,
okay,
because
well,
then
but
there's
let me
nothing else for her to do in any other movie. It's like
but
imagine if like Iron Man 1 had the fucking like super Hulkbuster in it already.
okay.
Like that'll be kind of
Well,
weird.
I have to say something about that. 'Cause you're saying people develop their powers over time, right?
The characters grow, develop, and get new capabilities over time.
Sure. But Wonder Woman timeline movie takes place in World War I. Batman versus Superman takes place in the modern day, and then the next Wonder Woman is going to take place in the 80s, and then Justice League takes place a year or whatever, how many years after just Batman vs Superman. So that's like over a century of her flying around, knowing her powers or whatever, and she still hasn't learned how to fly. I call bullshit on that.
Well, sometimes characters learn how to do something when they are faced with some sort of existential crisis, right? And the problem with Wonder Woman is her default form, as in seen in World War I Wonder Woman, is that she's already OP. Like World War I, she didn't need to know how to fly because planes weren't really that common, right? Like even in the storyline, she didn't really need to fly.
No, I understand that. That's why I'm not like too upset about in the movie that she couldn't fly, because I understood that like, if she could fly, it would completely like make her OP in the movie. But the problem is that her character can't fly, so like they should have at least shown that she could fly towards the end of the movie, or something.
Well,
That
the end of the end credit scene where she jumps off the balcony,
yeah, but
that was
very
ambiguous. So
that was
and
very
generally
vague.
speaking, end scenes are ambiguous. They don't straight out say you could do something. They hint at stuff. So
No, but
that's exactly what you were saying.
there's
They
a
did.
problem with that because she shows up in Batman vs Superman, and she still has not shown up fly in that film. So it's stupid in overall scheme of things. That's why I like, have a really hang up on her ability to fly, because it's years later she's in that movie and she still hasn't been showing herself flying. I just got bullshit. But that's just like one thing that I want to see from Wonder Woman. Like me personally, from future films, I want to see more of her like road gallery, because I don't know a lot about her road gallery.
Yeah.
So I want to see different
Well, we're
roads.
gonna learn about Cheetah at least.
Yeah, but I already know about Cheetah. Like,
Well, come on. You say you want to know more, and then you're like, oh, except for that one. Like
the thing
cheetahs are her main rival. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
but that's the thing. Like, I already know about Cheetah and the Gods. I already like I said that. I want to know about other ones that I'm not aware of that like I wanted to learn from, because like I don't read any Wonder Woman comics. I only read like Batman and Justice League and
Well,
Superman. I don't
we know that there's at least two villains in that thing because like that one rich dude in the trailer is probably another villain. Okay,
probably.
so the big question is what the fuck are you gonna do with Superman going forward or the MCU or DCU?
That's the thing. That's the thing. I
Like, do
think
you slap Henry Cavill with a bunch of money and get an actual writer that he would feel confident in? Do you just ignore Superman for the rest of the time?
I'm so mad because I feel like they wasted so much potential with that. Like
Henry
I'm really,
Cavill seemed like a legit decent Superman. Like I can't blame him for anything that
no,
happened.
I'm not talking about the actor. I'm talking about
No,
the
no, but I'm saying they wasted him. Like that's what you're saying. They're wasting their resources, and I think Henry
yeah.
Cavill was one of them.
It's the problem is that
Oh, no, I did
not
not like The
only
Witcher.
was it a waste in the actual Superman movie, Man of Steel, but it was also a waste in Batman vs Superman. Because
Oh
he
yeah,
threw away Doomsday.
yeah,
That
and the
was
waste
like
of Justice League.
that was such a waste, because that could have been like his own second movie. Because as you saw
Oh
in
no, no,
Batman
no!
vs
Like
Superman,
it's been established, Batman versus Superman should have been 5 different movies. They could have been making movies. They
no,
could have make it an entire phase.
that's a little too long. I think
No, no, like make 5 separate movies. Like there's literally enough content and storyline in there to make 5 separate DC movies.
yeah,
Like
but that's a little
that's like what they
overkill.
could have done. Like imagine Marvel Phase 2 condensed into one movie. That would be an awful movie. That's what Batman versus Superman was.
I didn't catch all of that because you broke up. But
Basically, imagine if they took an entire Marvel movie phase and combined into one movie. That's what Batman versus Superman was.
well, basically, Batman vs Superman should have been the equivalent of Avengers One. Basically, that's what it should have been. You know?
Yeah, but what it was just basically Phase 2, all of Phase 2 combined into one movie.
Yeah. That. Well, I mean, that's
Or
that's
like, or more fairly, is basically what they did was they took Phase 1 of MCU and gave Man of Steel its own movie, and everything else was in one movie. That's what they did with Batman versus Superman. That's why it was so god awful. Like
yeah. But, I mean,
it's
that's
like
the
it's basically what happened to Thor didn't get a movie, Hulk didn't get a movie. And like,
the only
and,
reason I brought that up is because of the Doomsday problem. like they wasted a Superman Road Gallery event right there.
Like they wasted one of his freaking prime threats.
Yeah, Doomsday. Everybody knows that Doomsday is the one that kills Superman, and that was like a story arc in of itself. Like him dying, him coming back, and him defeating Doomsday or whatever. That's a whole Superman movie right there, and they fucking wasted it. Especially the fact that they wasted a black suit Superman, which is like something that everybody wanted to fucking see. There's this content creator called Angry Joe. I'm not sure if you heard of him.
Angry Joe, yeah, of course I heard of Angry
Oh,
Joe.
no, he's a big Superman fan, and he got so
That would make
pissed
sense.
off
He's
about
so
that.
corny. Corny people
He's
love
so
Super.
fucking pissed off about that, and I can't blame him because they wasted so much potential there.
For
And that's
me,
like what I'm mad
I
about.
got burnt out of black suit superheroes when it came to because of Spider-Man 3. After that, I just never cared.
That was a decade ago, over a decade ago.
I know, but the scars are real, man.
Yeah, I know. Like nobody, I hated.
I
that.
can't remember anything in
Spider-Man
Spider-Man
fan.
3 anymore. I just deleted it from my memory.
Like, I'm a Spider-Man fan, and I hated that fucking movie too.
I'm not a Spider-Man fan, but I at least enjoyed Spider-Man 1 and 2. Like,
Yeah,
I didn't love it because I really hated the actress they casted for Mary Jane.
oh,
Every
really?
time I saw her on the screen, it just looked like she was confused. She's like, "Where am I?"
Um, I don't know, man. I just feel like they need to bring for Superman specifically. They need to bring bigger threats to him in order for him to make a good movie.
So,
Because-
do you think they should do the Iron Man one where he only shows up for the Avengers?
Sorry, I couldn't hear the last because you cut out.
Do you think that for Superman, assuming they can get a new actor or get Henry Cavill back, do you think they should treat him like Iron Man or Tony Stark, where he doesn't get any more of his own movies, but he's the guy that shows up when the story calls for it in other people's movies?
No. They need to give him his own movies, but they need to make him like world threats. Because the problem with Iron Man is like when they like Iron Man 2 was basically Iron Man 1 rehash, which was like what the fuck? Like I hated Iron Man 2 because it just felt like
I felt every Iron Man movie was just Iron Man 1, but worse. That's why I
Yes.
kind of hate the Iron.
that's why I
Like a
hated
lot of people have a lot of relevance for Iron Man, and I think he's a good actor, but I think a lot of his movies are shit.
Yeah, and then Iron Man 3 was even worse because they gave us a fake Mandarin. I was like, what the fuck is this?
No,
shit?
the problem that annoyed me is okay. Iron Man 1 was about how good of what kind of person he was when he didn't have the suit. Iron Man 2 was what kind of person he was when he didn't have the suit. Iron Man 3 was what kind of person he is without his suit. I'm like, I'm sorry, we've been through this shit. Did you not watch the last two movies?
But they don't. I don't want to see that with Superman because like even though I don't like
No, well, you know what I think the modern model for Superman is going to be going forward? It's going to be the Hulk.
they don't make a movie out of him. They just put him as a cameo.
No, is that like basically like his first two movies failed to like land in the as part of the universe, so they're probably got to recast him, just pretend those first two movies didn't happen, or just try not to talk about them, and just go forward from there. Because I don't think they can make enough movies to undo the mess that was what happened back then. Except the only potential is Flashpoint Paradox, which is basically resetting the DCU, which is still apparently happening. So that's the hold and savior that DC is holding on to. For me, I'm like, okay, so for all the characters that work, keep them, and for all the ones that did bad, just freaking just redo them and pretend they never existed. Because that worked for Hulk. No one's complaining about the Hulk. You know.
I kind of doubt that because I heard rumors recently that they're bringing back Henry Cavill and
I heard that they fixed up the relationship with Cavill. I don't blame him if he's like salty because they ruined his movies.
yeah. So I mean, there are rumors of both Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill coming back to reprise their roles. So like, if that's actually true, like they could continue on making Superman movies.
From what I understand, is their current plan is there's going to be a DCU still, and there's also going to be random shit that pops up that's not connected to the DCU. That's basically what the new Batman movie is and what the Joker movie is. Those are just like, hey, we're going to have fun. We're just going to make a movie. And I'm like, okay. And
Yeah,
so far it's been working. So, well, it's only been one movie so far, but like I don't mind. I don't think every movie needs to be a DCU movie. I don't see I don't see that they can't do both.
yeah. I have something to say about that, but I don't want to talk about that because it's like a separate conversation for another video.
All right, cool. So I say let's get ready to wrap up. Any final words?
What about you? No, I already said my two things about those two movies, like what they need to do.
Okay. Well, I felt this subject was went pretty well. If we're talking about 2.5 hours on it, probably not. No one's gonna watch it, but I don't give a shit. All right. Well, thanks everyone for not watching, and hope you have a good day.
I mean, you're not gonna say anything else about those two movies?
I think we had 2.5 hours, but generally speaking, my thing is I think Wonder Woman's pretty good. I think that they need to flesh out what her powers are or not because I think it's pretty vague still. But I honestly don't have a lot of criticism for Wonder Woman. For Superman, they need to fucking cut all the fat, restructure the storyline so it makes more sense. And on a final note, I don't really believe that the Snyder Cut is real for the Justice League. I think that they're just going back after the fact and using it as a retcon to say that's what we actually meant to do the whole time.
I gotta say something about that. Speaking of that, like the whole Snyder Cut thing, I don't think that's gonna fix any of the problems that any of those movies have, because the problems that those movies have are still standing regardless of the Snyder cuts. Like it doesn't change the story, it doesn't change the characters, anything. The Snyder
So
cut just like seems to like be um, a quote unquote remake of
I think it's
something.
gonna be a retcon, but like for me, the reason why I don't believe the Snyder Cut was real or would have made a difference if it was, or that the Snyder Cut they're releasing was the original Snyder Cut that they're gonna release now, is that a he had two shitty movies in a row before that one. And Batman v Superman was so shitty that movie Bob did like a fucking like 2-3 part series about how shitty it was. Like literally the takedown was for the movie was as long as the movie itself. So basically the entire movie was shit. Second of all, like even if he had a Snyder cut, there's no reason that he's just gonna go release the original cut. He's gonna have his mind change based on his experiences, based on all the criticism he received, based on him watching the movies again and looking why it doesn't suck. And I'm pretty sure he's did that with other people that told him why they think it sucked, people that he would trust. And like like he's a different person than who he was now than when the Snyder cut was being made because like as I'm pretty sure a lot of people realize he had some serious family issues that affected him greatly. So to think that he's gonna make the same movie now that he did back then, no, that's not the same movie. That's not the Snyder cut. That's the Snyder retcon. And I think if he's gonna retcon the movie and make it better, that's fine. I heard that's what they did with movies like The Butterfly Effect, which I still hate because I had to watch the shitty Butterfly Effect first time, and I fucking like wanted to shoot myself because that movie was so stupid on the ending. That's a different story, but yeah.
Well,
I
let me say this: like, you know what I equate to the Snyder cut?
uh-huh.
You know that movie? What's it called? The Harrison Ford movie with the in the future that takes place in the future with its robots and people hunting down the robots or whatever. You know
Oh
what I'm
yeah. Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, yeah, Blade Runner. Okay, so what I equate this Snyder cut is to Blade Runner because Blade Runner has the studio version and then the director's cut and then the extended cut and then some other bullshit, right? So what I equate this to is that um, Batman vs. The Justice League or whatever um, had a studio release, theater release, which is the one they went with, and as much as the director says that wasn't his vision, that is not the the consensus that was released to the populace. The release that was made to the populace was the studio version. So like,
Basically, your opinion is the same. My opinion is the same as the Butterfly Effect. Like, even if you had another vision, you gave us the shit version first, and you shouldn't have done that.
basically, and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what you change in your cut. The movie is relatively going to be the same. It's kind of like Blade Runner because of the only difference between the two movies is at the end, which is like the question is he is he a robot or not? That was the only difference between the two cuts. Like
For
in this,
me,
that doesn't matter in
I
other.
feel like the Snyder edition is gonna be more like George Lucas constantly retconning the Star Wars universe and saying that's what he intended to do the whole time. And I was like, no, that's not what you're intending to do. That's some bullshit that you added after the fact for no reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the people watching, like you and me and everybody else, can see through your bullshit. It's like we know that was not your intention, even if you say it 100 times. Like we know what your intention was because we saw the movie, and for a lot of us who are like source material people, we call bullshit because we see through the bullshit because we know the bullshit.
I'm not even a source material, Kyle. I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense. That's not how it works, motherfucker. You
But
gotta,
like, but you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
you are the general populace that has no source material relevant to go on, right? I know source material, so like it's both.
Well, I know some source material, but I'm not as married to the source material. For
Yeah,
me,
so
I'm
like,
more of a movie purist, and I try to judge the movie as a movie. Well, you're the comic book originalist, and you feel like that the movie has to be good in the context of the original material. I don't
see,
have that specific rule, but you do. I get that.
yeah, but see, in this aspect or this idea, it's like we both meet in the same place where
Yeah,
we
like fucking that movie's garbage, hot
yeah, that movie's
fucking
garbage,
mess.
and no matter what you do to edit it to your cuts, it's still gonna be garbage. It's like it doesn't matter.
No, for
Very
me, like,
so
because like one of the complaints that people had about Justice League is that like it's very obvious when what you call it, the Avengers dude comes in and edits shit. It's very obvious which scenes are his. I'm like, but I liked all of his scenes, like all the shit that was funny that felt like an Avengers flick. That's the part I liked of Justice League. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Okay, well we'll
yeah,
save Justice League for next time. I'm gonna kill the
yeah.
stream real quick.
Okay, you're gonna kill the stream.
Yeah.